Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Santa Clara City Council meeting. Could you please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance and remain standing for our statement of values? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
As we gather, we humbly seek blessings upon this meeting. May we act with strength, courage, and will to perform our obligations and duties to our people with justice to all. Let us seek wisdom so that we may act in the best interests of our people, our neighbors, and our country. All this we ask so we may serve our community with fairness and respect, putting their needs before all.
Please be seated. Start with a roll call. City Clerk.
Councilmember Caserta. Davis. Kolstad. Here. Mahan. O'Neill.
Here.
Watanabe. Here. And Mary Gilmore.
Here.
Motion to excuse Councilmember Caserta.
Motion second. Lights on the motion. And that passes unanimously. Going to take something out of order this evening. It is with great sadness that I report that our colleague, former council member Jerry Marcelli, passed away on Saturday, May 13th, after a long battle with an illness. And we just wanted to say a little bit about Jerry, tell you who he was and what he did for this community, and then ask for a moment of silence in his honor this evening. Jerry was a proud, lifelong resident of Santa Clara who dedicated his life to serving the city of Santa Clara and its community in numerous capacities. Jerry earned his Bachelor of Science degree in criminal justice from San Jose State University, where he met the love of his life, Nancy. Jerry and Nancy married in 1972 and had 3 children, Jared, Brian, and Janelle. The Marcelli family has called Santa Clara home for over 100 years. He and his wife raised their children here. Jerry retired as a lieutenant after a 30-year career in law enforcement with the Santa Clara Police Department. He served on numerous boards and commissions and committees, and he served a 4-year term on the Santa Clara City Council, and he was very, very anxious and dedicated to finishing his term, which he finished just this last December. Jerry and his family foundation have hosted their annual Thanksgiving dinner for 10 years, from 2006 to 2016, where they served over 800 meals each year to those in need in Santa Clara. Jerry was always deeply vested in the Santa Clara community. He was the ultimate model citizen, committed public servant, and champion of the Santa Clara community. He dedicated his life to make Santa Clara community stronger and has left a legacy for generations to come. He is survived by his parents, Larry and Elise, his sisters, Denise, Lori, his sons, Jared, Brian, and his daughter, Janelle, and son-in-law, Jason, and grandchildren, Kaylee and Allison and Tyler. Jerry was predeceased in life by his wife of 44 years, Nancy, in 2016. I'm going to ask if we could please have a moment of silence for Jerry. I didn't know if anyone else would like to say anything up here, if you'd like to or not. He's going to be sorely missed in this community.
I'll say something.
Teresa?
I've known of Jerry for many, many years and only got to really know him as a friend and a colleague in recent years, but he helped me on a number of projects, and I think Jerry was, in the best sense of the wording, though it seems old-fashioned, a gentleman, and carried himself with honor and dignity, and was a great friend, and he did love this community, and he loved his family. He was a characteristic that's much prized in my family is loyalty, and I think that that fits Jerry to the T. And I know that he had said to me that he felt that he was letting people down, that he was not going to be able to run for a second term. I mean, that was just his level of commitment of service. And even with the horrible illness that he was fighting and the great amount of pain that he was in that last year when he came to almost all of the meetings. And I don't think the public really saw, it was very difficult for all of us to see what he put himself through to come to these meetings to serve his community. So I think he was a real model of public service. And we'll miss you, Jerry.
Thank you. And I think Councilmember Davis, does someone have the information on his services in case those?
Thank you, Mayor. The police department, chief of police sent out a memorandum. Services will be held for Jerry on Monday at St. Justin's Church at 6 p.m. His funeral mass will be at St. Justin's. Burial will be at Santa Clara Mission Cemetery, I'm sure with Nancy, so that people know that this is very hard for us, all of us. So we hope that you will be able to pay your respects to the family. He did a lot of service to the community. And like the mayor said, the family's been here over 100 years. That's a long time to be invested in a city and to give your service. We will miss Jerry. He was the voice of reason for a lot of different things. He was a great father. He loved his city. And like Councilmember O'Neill said, it bothered him that he couldn't do a second term. I ran with Jerry, Teresa, Jerry and I came on council together, and we had a lot of fun. But his commitment level was just, he gave his heart and his soul to everybody, and we will miss him.
Thank you. Councilmember Colstead.
Thanks, Mayor. I just got a message that the Rosary will be on Monday, May 22nd at 7 p.m. at St. Justin's, and the funeral service Tuesday, May 23rd at 10 a.m. at St. Justin's. I don't know if there was some confusion on that, but apparently somebody that heard the announcement was confused. So those are the dates for the services.
Thank you. Thank you for that clarification. Okay. Moving on, we have approval of the minutes from April 18th, 2017. Is there a motion to approve?
Second.
Motion second. Lights on the motion. And that passes unanimously. Continuances and exceptions. Councilmember Colstead, did you have something? No? Councilmember O'Neill.
Yes, Madam Mayor, if I may ask for the council's indulgence, I would like to pull item 18C up to be heard after our recognitions, public recognitions this evening.
Okay, so that's moving 18C after 12F before the consent calendar?
Yes,
Is that
please.
where you'd like it?
Yes, thank you.
Is that a motion? Is there a second? Motion second. Lights on the motion. And that passes unanimously. Okay, any other continuances and exceptions, City Manager?
Mayor, we have an item on consent, but we can talk about it at that time when you
Okay.
get to consent.
All right, thank you. Okay, first, we have a special order of business this evening, and it's a special mayoral recognition to Kimberly and Jeff Jackman here tonight for their many years of service, volunteer service to the Santa Clara High School Music Booster Program and Santa Clara Unified School District's music program, Santa Clara Vanguard, and the California Color Guard Circuit. And I believe Councilmember Watanabe, you wanted to make the presentation? If I could call them forward, please. So everyone, if you wouldn't mind coming forward so everyone knows who we're talking about. This is your hot seat right here.
Well, thank you for being here tonight. My daughter goes to Santa Clara High School as well, but I understand that your daughter is graduating this year, and your family is leaving quite a legacy behind. And so a good friend of yours, Jennifer Witten, reached out to me, and she said, you know, before their daughter graduates, we really want to make sure that they are recognized for all that they've contributed, not just to Santa Clara High School, but, you know, to all the different schools that their daughter has attended over the last, I guess, 12 years in Santa Clara. So it truly is an honor to be able to celebrate you tonight and honor, you know, what you've contributed and give you a special token of recognition from the city of Santa Clara. And hopefully, as your daughter goes off to college, you'll be getting some more. So keep up the tradition. So congratulations and thank you for being here tonight. And thank you for Jennifer for reaching out to honor this wonderful couple.
Thank you.
Sounds like people really know you in this community for all that you do. If the council would join me, we'd like to present you with the two recognitions and get a picture.
After talking here. Okay. So Mayor Gilmore asked us just to say a few words, and I'm not sure if I can do it without being too emotional because this means a great deal to Jeff and I. We have spent a number of years supporting music and marching in Santa Clara, and it's our we are dedicated to continuing to do that for some years to come. Even though our daughter is leaving Santa Clara High School, we are very proud of the program that is growing there, and it really truly is just what started out supporting our own two children and their love for music has turned into a passion for us to dedicate our free time to supporting all of music and marching in Santa Clara. And we are true believers that music education is a critical piece of the puzzle for so many children, and are just grateful that we have such a flourishing program in our city and at our high school to be able to help support them and participate in. So thank you very much. We appreciate this more than you know.
Thanks.
Thank you.
And we're so glad we're not losing you, so that's great. I heard that, we all heard that. They're not leaving. All right, so next we have presentation of the Youth Commission Community Service Scholarship. Is John Kawada here? Like to come forward, John, and tell us about the lucky recipient?
Good evening, Mayor Gilmore, City Council members, City Manager, and City staff present tonight. The Youth Commission is proud to sponsor a community service scholarship in an effort to recognize youth who have made a commitment to service in the Santa Clara community. This year, the Youth Commission would like to present Jill Mangawang, a junior at Mission Early College High School, a $500 scholarship for her continued service to the Santa Clara community. Jill, come on up.
Wow.
And Lisa. And Mayor and Council, we'd like to invite you down and take a photo with Jill.
A big check. We'd love to.
Let's move down over to there. And Alicia Luong is our Youth Commission Vice Chair, but she was also the Scholarship Committee Chair as well.
Okay, next we have a recognition of the week of May 12th through 19th, 2017 as Affordable Housing Week. And we have a presentation of proclamation to Silicon Valley at Home to raise awareness of affordable housing issues. So we have, I think, a group of folks here today to talk about that, and if they'd like to come to the podium, everyone involved. And I think Chris Neal, you're going to be our speaker today from CORE. And we have Nicole is here, Chris Neal and Paul Ring. Oh, I recognize you, Paul. Paul Ring. And Kurt Vartan and whoever else is coming up. Welcome and congratulations. Chris.
Good evening, Mayor, council members. Thank you for having us this evening. My name is Chris Neal. I'm with the Core Companies, but tonight I'm in front of you as a board member of SV at Home, a policy and advocacy organization working to drive the creation of affordable housing for a more vibrant and equitable Silicon Valley. I am happy to receive this recognition on behalf of SV at Home, the Core Companies, and all of our partner agencies working with the City of Santa Clara to continue to make Santa Clara a more affordable place to live. On behalf of all of our members, we thank the City of Santa Clara for proclaiming the week of May 12th to May 19th as Affordable Housing Week, and for its leadership and commitment to partnering with us, SV at Home, to find solutions to this epic housing crisis. From 2010 to 2015, over 172,000 jobs were created in Santa Clara County, but only 36,000 homes were built. Affordable Housing Week provides the opportunity for the community to learn about and talk about solutions to this crisis, which is impacting thousands of families and individuals throughout the City of Santa Clara and the County of Santa Clara, and is impacting our community's quality of life and economic health. This past Saturday, we had the honor of showing over 65 people from around the Bay Area the award-winning Presidio El Camino Santa Clara Affordable Housing property, showcasing the quality commitment that this city makes to affordable housing. I must admit there were several city officials from other nearby cities that had housing envy of what the City of Santa Clara had been able to accomplish in its community. We hope to see you all at many of the events that have been planned for Affordable Housing Week this week. You can find the full calendar on SV at Home's website at siliconvalleyathome.org. And we had over 65 cookies with the city's stamp on it at the event. They were so popular, almost all of them were taken, so we were able to save one. And so, Mayor, we had a plan for 7, so we apologize to the 6, but Mayor Gilmore, we have one for
They
you
don't
as a
like
token.
cookies. I'm the only
Okay,
one who
good.
likes cookies. Look at me.
So thank you very much.
We have a proclamation for you if the
Thank you.
council will join us down there again.
Thank you.
And we would like to present this.
Are you sharing that cookie?
No. Don't share. All fun and games like this, huh? Okay, next we have promotion of our Senior Advisory Commission, Be Strong, Live Long, Health and Wellness Fair on May 20th. And Grant McCauley is here to tell us all about it. Welcome, Grant.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor Gilmore, City Council, the public. Thank you very much for coming tonight. My name is Grant McCauley. I have been on the Senior Advisory Commission for just shy of a year now. And the last time I was here was October 25th, when the Senior Advisory Commission presented to you the application, and you passed as a resolution that night to be certified as an age-friendly city through the World Health Organization. The World Health Organization has come up with this certification for age-friendly cities to provide environments to foster active aging by improving the health, increasing participation, and supporting quality life for all of our senior citizens. The older adult population in Santa Clara is projected to double within the next 15 years, and an age-friendly city will ensure that all older adults are recognized as being valued, understood, respected, involved, and in a high quality of life. To support the age-friendly city, the Santa Clara Senior Advisory Commission will be hosting the Health and Wellness Fair this Saturday, May 20th, at Fremont Park, adjacent to the Santa Clara Senior Center. The Be Strong, Live Long motto that we've adopted for this Health and Wellness Fair is a collaboration with the Senior Center and the Parks and Recreation Department. This is going to be a great event. We've been working on this for several months now, and we have over 20 resource booths that will be there for everybody to visit and gather information. We've enlisted the help of the Women's League to help us. They will be manning the information booth as well as working as guides to make sure that everybody can have an opportunity to visit all the booths and gather all the information that they can. This also is a place for the community to learn about all the resources that we have in Santa Clara as well as outside of Santa Clara. There's also going to be opportunities for people to try many exercise classes at about 20 minutes apiece, so they can try classes, try before they buy, in jazzercise, flex fitness, prevention of falls, and Tai Chi. We're also going to be offering tours of the senior center because we believe that by exposing the senior center to more people, it's going to increase the use of the facility. One of the things that we're really looking forward to is that the Santa Clara Lions Club will be there to do hearing and vision screening, and they're the one organization that we've moved into the senior center itself to give them a quiet room, a quiet conference room for them to conduct the hearing and vision screenings. They'll be providing the people with a printout then of what they find so that they can go back to their doctors with information that they can look into something if there is more serious. There is a barbecue lunch that will be provided by the senior center at $7. It's a healthy barbecue lunch. And we've also, because of the parking situation at Fremont Park, we're encouraging people to carpool or walk or bike. So we've asked for the help from Boy Scout Troop 74, and they'll be conducting their bike watch facility, just like they do at the Art and Wine Festival. The one thing that really is going to be the start of this, the launch, is the 2017 Senior Needs Assessment and Gap Analysis. We'll be kicking that off, be the first time to do the survey. We've got people from the Women's League and staff members of the Senior Center that will be conducting the survey, and then we'll gather the information. It will be analyzed by students from Santa Clara University, presented back to us, and that will be on the city website for everybody to see. The gap analysis is going to give us an opportunity to take a look at some of the areas that we need to focus our energies on and make improvements. So this will be really exciting for us to take a look at that and see where we need to make our improvements and what we can do before we do the next gap analysis. So I'm personally inviting each and every one of you and the public, whether you are a senior yourself, or you know a senior, or you're taking care of a senior, there's information at this fair for everybody to learn. And so it'll be this Saturday from 10 to 2, Fremont Park, and we'd really like to see all of you there. Thank you.
Thank you. Sounds like a really fun and exciting day. I'm planning on coming, so wonderful. Okay. I didn't say that. Okay. I think we're pretty much all seniors up here. Next.
It's been pointed out to us.
Yes, it's pointed out constantly. All right, we have a presentation by our Cultural Commission on the upcoming fun events for May and June 2017, and I think we have our chair, Eversley Forte, here. Welcome back again. Let us know where we can have fun in Santa Clara now.
And we will be having fun every weekend in Santa
Hey,
Clara
okay.
at least until August.
Okay.
Okay. So let me get the next slide up. Oh, it's the clicker. Point which way?
You have to do your own work around here.
Oh, we have to work now.
Yeah.
Just, okay, there we are. Thank you. My first time with the clicker.
Oh,
All right.
good job.
Okay, so each month we're going to be giving a general update on what we have planned. One of the biggest issues we've had over the last couple of years with the events we've been putting on is that no one knows they're going on. So, great example, last year at one of our concerts, we actually got yelled at by some people at the concert because the concert was so good, they were mad that there weren't more people there. And they actually were mad at us because we didn't have more people there. So we've been looking for ways to get the word out. We have all these great events going on, quality entertainment. So on our commission Facebook page, we'll be listing all the events. It's the facebook.com/cultural commission. And one of the things we're doing are commemorative month events, and I'll talk about the next one coming up in a few minutes. And we have concerts in the park, Friday Night Live we'll be doing in the fall. And we're teaming up with different groups in the community to put on events and co-promote events. Okay, next on the agenda will be this Saturday in celebration of Asian Pacific American Heritage Month. We're going to be working with Whole Foods to have a noodle cook-off, and our own mayor, Gilmore, has graciously agreed to step up one more time and serve the community selflessly as a judge for the cook-off.
With food, right? After I go to the wellness and health fair.
Yeah, you gotta get them both in there. Okay, and during that afternoon, we're gonna have kids' activities, we're gonna have different vendors there, come check it out. And during the second half of the event, we will be having live entertainment, which the Cultural Commission is promoting and sponsoring. So we'll have live entertainment during the second half of the event. And it should be really good. We have some cooks who are not professionals, they're members of the Santa Clara community, and we want to be out there and cheer them on. We want to make it like the finale of one of those cooking shows on TV, except you won't have someone like Chef Ramsay yelling at them. That's the big difference. So, and that'll be this Saturday, 3 to 5 p.m. at Whole Foods. And it will be indoors. We switched it, moving from outdoors to indoors this Saturday. So it'll be real comfortable. Let's come on down. All right. Now, we have several events coming up at Central Park Pavilion. Now, the Family Fun Nights, there are 3 of them in June. I want to clarify that those are events put on by the library, the Family Fun Nights. Several years ago, we started co-promoting the Family Fun Nights by the library in conjunction with the concerts in the park. They just go together so beautifully. A lot of people wonder what they can do with their kids, their families in Santa Clara, and the Family Fun Night is a perfect opportunity to come out to the pavilion at Central Park. They have events there that are entertaining. They're geared towards kids and families. So the events are entertaining, they're interactive, they're educational, and also they have multicultural events. It'll be music, it'll be dance, it'll be magic acts. And I've been to quite a few of them. I don't have kids. I just like to go to them because they're fun. Okay? I didn't do this stuff when I was a kid. As a kid, after school, I just studied a lot. So now I'm actually doing the stuff I would like to do when I was a kid, and it's fun just being out there. So bring the family out there on those Family Fun Nights. That's Monday, June 12th, Monday, June 19th, and Monday, June 26th for the Family Fun Nights, and those are all put on by the library. So, and our first concert in the park will be Friday, June 16th at 6:30 p.m. And that's going to be the Private Label Band, and it's a high-energy rock and dance band. But I wanted to make sure, because there is a typo in the summer activities guide. It lists all of this Friday night concerts as starting at 8 p.m. So for anyone listening, the Friday night concerts start at 6:30 p.m. They're all at 6:30 p.m. on Friday nights. And then starting in July, I'll have the schedule next month. In July, we'll start the Sunday afternoon shows also. But get out there for the concerts in the park and bring friends for all those events. Bring food, bring family, hang out on the lawn. It's a perfect time. It's cool, it's comfortable, and it's a great time to just hang out with your buddies, have a meal, bring your kids, and just have a good time. And that's all I got for you for this evening. If you have any questions.
Thanks. Is there any questions from council on this? Looks wonderful.
Thank you.
Like a fun summer.
Thanks.
Thank you. We'll see you next month. Okay. Next item we have is the joint study session to review the proposed capital improvement program budget for fiscal year 2017-2018. City Manager.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the council, and members of the public. As you mentioned, Mayor, this is a study session on the budget processes. Today, we'll be talking about the capital improvement program. I just wanted to share with the public that next week on the 23rd, we'll be talking about the operating budget. And the actual approval of the budget is scheduled for June 13th meeting. So today, we want to share with you what we have this year and what's coming next year in the capital improvement program. And we want to really engage you in your comments, your priorities, and obviously we've factored in the council set goals and when we met at the offsite meeting, and we've brought those projects into this budget. So to start off, somebody will have to move that to the next slide. I don't have the clicker like ours you had. So the budget process, we'll talk about these fund groups. Oh, thank you. So fund groups, and these are the 3 basic funds that we have. And we'll do the CIP overview for next year. And then we also want to present to you, as we've done annually, we want to bring some department heads in front of you to talk about some of the big projects they're working on within their departments and what's upcoming next year. And then I'll cover the rest of them, which are not as big, but still to give you an idea what's in the CIP next year. So I should point that way. There we go. Okay, so, and the council adopted the budget principles in January of this year. And as I won't read each one, but these are council-adopted principles that we really implemented into the preparation of the budget. And also, as I mentioned, we had that strategic planning session, and we got input from the community at that meeting as well. I would like to point out, and will credit staff with that, that the draft book was presented to you and was placed online couple weeks in advance this time, as opposed to giving it to you 2 days in advance. So thanks to our finance department staff. Angie Kretsch is sitting here. She's the acting director of finance. And then we have Randy Petrovsky. And also, I don't know if Robert is here or not, but Robert Valentukonis. They really worked hard on this presentation and the budget itself. Okay. There we go. So in addition to the council principles, I also sat down with the department heads and gave them some guidelines, which are listed here. But just to highlight a couple, like completing the projects which had already been approved, those we definitely need to finish. Deferred maintenance needs, otherwise, most of our facilities are quite old, so we wanted to make sure that we keep them in good condition to enhance their life cycle. End-of-life technology, we are center of what's possible, and we definitely have to engage with technology. In fact, just today, we had meeting with a Japanese delegation, and that was the focus of that discussion. And then any new or enhanced projects, we will do if they are mandatory, and we have some additional funding sources or alternative funding sources, and they result in lower operating costs. Also, I would like to point out that this budget was presented to the Citizens Advisory Committee on February 13th to gain their input into it. So at this point, I'm going to turn it over to Angie Kretsch, our acting director of finance. She's going to walk us through some more details with numbers. There are infrastructure and funding sources, and also future funding issues that we want to talk to you about. As I mentioned, it's really not a presentation on the budget. We would really ask you to engage and give us guidance and things that you would like us to add or change in this process, so we can bring back a good budget to you on June 13th.
Thank you. Welcome.
Thank
Angie.
you. Good evening. As the city manager mentioned, we have 3 fund groups that we do the CIP in, and they are street and highway funds, general government funds, and enterprise funds. So I will go through each one of those and just kind of give you a brief overview of what they are. So the 2017-18 CIP is $130.4 million. And as you can see, the enterprise being the largest at 81% of that number with $105.7 million. And the enterprise funds, as you can see, are listed below that. The general government funds make up 11% of that number, or $14 million. And streets and highway funds are at 8%, which is $10.7 million. So on street and highway funds, this is used for street resurfacing, major roadway improvements, traffic signal improvements, and other things that are also listed on here. We wanted to give you an idea of the different types of financing sources for these street and highway funds. And as you can see, there are some general fund or capital project reserve funds that are used for these items. And this budget does not include the recently passed SB 1 gas tax, and that being the actual, we'll start receiving that probably in November 2017, and we're estimating about $714,000. So we'll probably come back at mid-year and appropriate that for wherever we need it is for the streets. And this graph gives you an idea of how much is actually being spent from each funding source. And you can see that the general fund, I highlighted that or bolded that for you, is only 0.2. So it's not a big number. The biggest number being the gas tax revenue for the streets and highways. One thing we added to the budget this year after the infrastructure presentation that we did earlier, we wanted to show you the dark blue is what we have included in 6 years of funding. The orange shows you what is the deferred or unfunded. So these are projects that are out there that we know that need to be done, but we do not have the funding to do those. Some examples are the pavement maintenance rehabilitation. We have $53.3 million that's unfunded. And we also were not able to fund the full $7.5 million to maintain the PCI. And in order to get to 82 PCI, we were not able to increase that even more. So those are all unfunded. Also uncontrolled crosswalk improvements and annexed neighborhood street improvements. Moving to the general government funds, this is used for repairs or modifications to the public buildings, for the convention center, civic center, fire, IT, library, parks, the general fund type sources. And again, we put the financing sources. We wanted to show that, and the biggest source of that funding will be as you can see here in the orange, is the capital projects reserve, which is the general fund. So we have $6.4 million from the capital reserves being allocated to general government projects. This thing is... Everyone said last night they were having fun. Okay. Also wanted to point out, we also have 4.2 in developer impact fees budgeted here also. Again, this is another chart for the general government funds showing the what we were able to fund over the 6 years and what we're not able to fund in the orange. And this does not include the International Swim Center. The International Swim Center is shown here. I want to just give you an idea of how much that is over the 6 years. I think the 5 years here, and it's $199.3 million. Moving to the capital projects reserve forecast, we had mentioned in the city manager's transmittal letter that this is slowly going to go into a deficit because we are not anticipating additional funding. We were not able to program any funding from the general fund operating, which we will present to you next Tuesday, the 23rd. We are not anticipating having any type of surplus to actually program into this reserve. So we are starting the 17-18 with a 26.3. You can see in the orange how it's going down. By the 5th year, or 6 years, I'm sorry, we'll be in a deficit of $4.7 million if we cannot contribute more into this reserve. The blue shows how much we have allocated. So we started the year with over $30 million, but these are for projects that are going over the whole 6 years. So we weren't able to say we're going to have savings and we can use it for another project. So these projects are already in the CIP, and the funding is over those years. On the enterprise funds, as I mentioned, they are the electric, water, and sewer utilities, solid waste, and cemetery, and they provide for the rehabilitation, upgrade, and major maintenance of enterprise facilities and assets. The biggest sources of financing here are customer service charges. As you can see right here in the orange, it makes up $60 million of the $105.7 million. And then there are no unfunded projects in the enterprise funds because they are able to charge for the projects that through the charges for services. So here I wanted to show you the carry forward. A carry forward is projects normally cross fiscal years. For example, if something starts in December, it may not be finished until the following year. Or there are projects that we are saving up for. We budget a certain amount every year until we have enough funding to actually do the project. So you can see the total carry forward for 17-18 is $140 million. And added on to the 130.4 that we just went over, the total 2017-18 budget, CIP budget, is 270.6. That includes 227 active projects, and 24 of those are new projects.
Angie, if I may interrupt you here for 1 second. The first column of 142 million, Mayor, that one, we are giving it a serious look. If it's funded, if these are the projects which are multi-year projects, but for some reason we haven't been able to start those. So rather than locking up the funding for those projects, we may be able to reprogram them for new things for next year. So we are seriously looking at that. Every department is engaged in that. Point being, if, let's say, 10 million was set aside for a project 3 years ago, but hasn't moved, so do we really need that project?
Yeah, I was
So-
going to ask you, are there projects that we know are not going to get done, but there's money sitting in accounts for
That's a good
that?
question. So that's
like that,
exactly what we are
Going
looking
in
at.
and clearing out
Right.
what hasn't been done.
That's exactly we are
Okay,
engaged
that's
in
good.
as we
Good to
speak.
know. Thank you.
And as the city manager mentioned, we have looked at, when we were preparing the budget and asked the departments to look at their projects, and if feasible, they would reallocate those to other projects instead of transferring money or using money from the capital reserve. Streets and highway funds have carryover multi-year projects and timing to complete the annex street projects. General government, we have a couple of large multi-year projects, such as in the youth soccer fields on Reading Grant Street, and the convention center land purchase that we have right now. We also have some restricted developer fees. As you know, you have to budget those. They have to be spent or appropriated within 5 years of receiving them. And also funds for ongoing IT projects such as the CAD system, permit information system, and utility management information system. The enterprise funds build the balances, like I mentioned earlier, to fund large multi-year projects, and we have some of those listed here as examples. And now I'm going to turn it over to the Acting Assistant Director for Public Works, Gustavo Gomez, to go over the Public Works Department projects.
Welcome.
Thank you, Andy. Good evening, Mayor, members of the council. I just have two projects to highlight. First one is the annual street maintenance program. This is a very important program for us. It's a yearly program that extends the useful life of the roadway system and improves its riding quality, not to mention the aesthetic value it brings as well. And the operative word there is preventive. It's very important to maintain our streets. If not maintained in a timely fashion, we would then increase its cost for maintenance. We can start with a simple, simple slurry seal project, for example. If we let it lag several years, then it increases to a more costly alternative for maintenance. In terms of cost, we're looking at slurry seal as our first option, Cape Seal, AC overlay or asphalt concrete overlay, and then ultimately would be the street reconstruction if it need be. But we're trying to prevent that in a timely fashion to not exponentially increase the cost for maintenance there. In order for us to manage the hundreds of miles of street that we have in the city, we use a program to assist us with that. We not only input the physical parameters of the street, width, length, structural pavement section, last time it was treated, and so forth and so on, but with other parameters to assist us in managing the large number of streets. And in so doing, it helps us prioritize and deliver a more effective project overall, a cost-effective project on that one. We're budgeting in there $4 million per year for a total of 24 in the 6 years. As Angie mentioned, we're running a deficit. If we were to keep the same PSI there of 75, which is currently, we are running at a deficit of a 3.5 million. If we were to increase it, as was pointed out, to a PCI of 82, which gets us back to about the 2007 level, we were at 84. We're running a deficit of about 10.6 million. The other project we want to highlight is the storm drain pump station repairs of equipment and so forth. It's no accident that even in the large storms that we had, we managed to get through the storms without flooding, which, unlike the resurfacing project or the street maintenance project, that's a highly visible. Here's a project that nobody will necessarily see unless it doesn't work. And that is to maintain our pump stations. As we all know, in the north end of town, we're protected by flood walls and levees, and that's why it's important to maintain our pump stations in top-tip shape in order for them to work and function properly. Just before the last rainy season, if you will, we replaced 9 storm pumps just in the nick of time when the heavy rains came in and hit. We also have contracted with a consultant to assist us in updating a pump and control equipment replacement schedule. We'll utilize that schedule again to prioritize what pumps need to be replaced. Not only pumps, but we're talking pumps, motors, control valves, and instrumentation, et cetera, in order to have an effective and operating pump stations, if you will. In doing so, again, it minimizes the chances of localized flooding during the large storm events on that. So with that, I'm going to ask the acting Director of Water and Sewer Utilities, Gary Angley, to come up. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Gustavo. Good evening, Mayor, Council,
Evening.
City Manager. Okay, I'm going to talk about a few of the projects we have going on in the Water and Sewer Utilities Department. First one I'll talk about here is the water storage tank rehabilitation. We have 7 tanks throughout the city that store water. We average about 28 million gallons, and these tanks are really important in the event of major emergencies. We want to maintain pressures throughout our distribution system. And so we've embarked upon a rehabilitation and refurbishment of those tanks. We've done a number of the tanks, and three of the that are shown here, the Sarah tanks at 200 Lawrence Expressway. We're going to have a couple divers in those tanks in a few months doing an assessment and looking at the interior. And based on the assessment they do, we'll be doing rehabilitation. The other tank that we're going to be looking at is the downtown tank at 351 Brokaw Road over by the Costco. And once we've completed these tanks, the refurbishment, all of our tanks will be complete. So we should be in pretty decent shape. In 2017-18, we're looking at spending $0.6 million, $600,000, and then over the 6-year period, we're looking at $3.5 million. In addition, we're going to look at new and replacement of wells. We have 27 wells throughout the city that pump our groundwater. It's about 60% of our total water supply. But a lot of the wells are getting old, so we are closing some of those wells out, terminating them, but we need to explore new locations and drill new wells. A couple of the locations we're looking at primarily are the Sarah Tank location at 200 Lawrence Expressway. We've got a lot of property there, and we're also looking at Fire Station 5 and some other locations. Gives us ability, well, if we have good wells, is we can increase our groundwater pumping. As I said, we've got 60% of our water supply coming from groundwater, so it's very important. We are looking at about $700,000 we should be spending in 17-18, and then over the 6-year period, $5.2 million. So another major project that's ongoing, and this project is actually completed by our construction staff. We replace approximately 2 miles of water pipe that's in the ground on a yearly basis. We are looking at condition assessment of that pipe. We base that on age, material, type, condition, our leak data, and water quality. And essentially, by having a replacement schedule that we stay on, we're able to improve the system reliability. Currently, we're working over on Kiley Avenue in Fresno. So we've got some undersized pipes over there in the residential neighborhoods, and you can see our crews have been out there over the last year working to replace those. Another item I'll mention is emergency interties. We have a number of interties with adjoining cities in the event we have loss of pressure in our city or a major incident like an earthquake. If we have that loss of pressure, we can pull in water from adjoining cities. So we've got 2 emergency interties, one we just completed with San Jose, and there's another one that we're working on with Sunnyvale. And these are joint projects. We're working collaboratively with Public Works and with those cities. And the San Jose intertie is being completed is on Old Mountain El Viso Road by Calabasas Creek. On the water and sewer, or on the sewer side, we are in the process of doing a sanitary sewer assessment, condition assessment. We've gotten through about a third of the city, and our sewer crews complete majority of this work, CCTVing and then cleaning the sewers and also doing the repairs. This is a joint project with Public Works, and on the larger capital improvement projects, Public Works handles those. We go out with RFPs and we have contractors come in and do large sections. This is a major bit of work that we do. Important bit of work. We want to make sure that we reduce the sanitary sewer overflows into San Francisco Bay and into the storm drain. So we want to protect water quality. That's a major focus. In 17-18, we're going to spend about 3.8 million, and over the 6-year period, about 21.9 million. And one of the largest CIP projects doesn't actually happen in this city, but we are the joint owner of the San Jose, Santa Clara Regional Wastewater Facility. That plant is about 60 years old, and they're going through some major renovations. We're going to be spending about $2 billion over 20 years. We are about 17% owner of the facility, and over the next 5 years, we're going to be on the hook for about $100 million. So next year, we're going to be spending about $26.5 million is going to be our contribution. And I mentioned over the next 6 years, it's going to be $157 million. Again, this is a major renovation and a lot of work going on at the city. And that's what I have, and I'm going to hand this off to Jim Teixeira, Park and Recs, Director of Park and Recs.
Thank you. Welcome.
Thank you very much. In the coming fiscal year, the Parks and Rec Department continues its capital improvement project focus on the council goal to enhance community sports and recreational assets. As a reminder, just this last year, Bracker Park was completed in fall 2016. We completed the Youth Soccer Park Field 2 in March of this year. Also the lighting at Montague, safety lighting at Montague Park. The expansion of Steve Carley Park Playground will be done at the end of this month. And the Senior Center, Computer Room, and Wood Shop Dust Collection System were completed recently, as were the tennis stands at Central Park, park bench replacements at Lick Mill, among other sites, and we continue this year. This year's CIP playground replacement list includes Home Ridge, Machado, Bowers, and Central Park Arbor Playground. Montague Park will also see a larger park makeover. I want to remind all of us that Park and Rec projects are very near and dear to each neighborhood's heart, so we try to have extensive community outreach and neighborhood input processes that works with our selected design and engineering specialists. This assures that we're incorporating best practices and the principles of inclusive playground design, providing age-friendly, multi-generational spaces, integrating both nature and habitat, health and fitness into the play environments. We address issues of park safety, ADA pathway, and system connectivity. We also make sure that we're sustainable in design, materials, and also technology to support more efficient park maintenance. To this end, Kitchell CEM is currently working with Parks and Recreation and Information Technology on a system-wide
park inventory and facility condition assessment that will help inform park priorities, leverage technology to integrate with a new work order system, and to begin to address the preventative maintenance in our backlog of deferred maintenance projects. Practically speaking, this year the public can expect to see park bench and lighting replacements, field and sport court improvements, new playgrounds, barbecue areas, and new trees. We're also continuing to work on larger multi-year funded projects such as the Eulestack Natural Area Grant, Santa Clara Valley Water District, the San Tomas and Monroe Community Garden and Neighborhood Park to be out for construction bid next month. And we also continue to work with the Public Works Department to bring the Reed and Grant Street Soccer Fields Community Center and added dog park enhancements. And so now, on to John Rockema and SVP.
Thank you.
So Mayor, while Director Rockema is walking up, last time when we had the discussion on infrastructure projects, we didn't have enough time to have SVP present something, so I've given John extra 5 minutes.
Oh, he gets double time
He gets
now?
double time,
Okay.
yeah. Thank you.
Hi, John.
Hi.
Welcome.
Thank you very much. I'll see if I can cut my presentation down here. Yeah, in order to keep and maintain the reliability of the electric system and provide for a high service level, we have a number of different projects, and I put them in categories here. So starting with the transmission and the distribution system, where we have various replacement and upgrade projects. We fund most of these out of operating revenues. They include our overhead infrastructure replacement and just general distribution and transmission betterments. We also have some projects for Caltrain crossings as they electrify the Caltrain. And then a total about $5.9 million in the coming fiscal year, and about $40 million over the next 6 years. The next category is our substation rebuilds and equipment replace. We have about 26 substations in the city. These are expensive facilities, large facilities. They include our phase shifting transformer. We also have a rebuild of our Sarah substation, which is on next to Agilent. We also have to keep our protection systems upgraded on these systems, which to make sure that they would shut down if there's any issues there. And we also are replacing some transformer banks and proposing to replace some transformer banks in our receiving stations, and that's almost $10 million in that project alone. And this, we're proposing about $10.5 million in the coming fiscal year, and with about $40.9 million over the 6 years. The next one category is our generation plants, and the city owns 7 generation plants, including 3 in town and 4 hydroelectric plants outside the city. And there's just a number of large maintenance, and capital maintenance that's required on those. And 3 of the plants are powered by large jet engines there, and they take overhauls, and they're very expensive to overhaul these things. So what we do is we put money away for those overhauls, and we kind of build it up over time. So as we then bring an engine in for overhaul, we have the funds to do it. We also have a steam turbine, which we do the same thing. Those are ongoing costs. And then there's also the emissions control equipment that actually requires the replacement of catalysts over at various times. So we're up, doing that. And then we've got some erosion control projects, and another project we've shown you before is the repowering of the Altamont wind farm. We'll replace these 200 little machines with 9 larger ones. We also have the relicensing of one of our hydroelectric projects, which is a very expensive and time-consuming process. So this year, we're looking at about $10.9 million in this category, and again, about $40 million over the 6-year period. The next category is street lighting, and there's about we have 6 ongoing projects in street lighting. Some of them include replacing older high-maintenance fixtures that over time have become trouble and hard to replace. And then there's also the retrofit of high-pressure sodium to LED, which saves energy and provides a better light level. Now, we're not adding any more money to these projects this year. We have the funds for these in place, and we do expect to spend some money over the next 6 years in street lighting. Next one is actually, for us, is a very exciting one, is all the new business and system growth we have going on. Now, these projects are funded by developer contributions, so we actually have the developers and the people adding load to the system pay their way in the capital costs. And that can include just expanding the distribution services to provide service to these. Some of it is expanding existing substations or building new substations. And we're also going to have to reconfigure our 60 kV transmission loops to serve this additional load. Now, we have a couple of large projects that are carrying over in this category, but we're also looking at adding about $3.8 million this year, and we're probably getting close to $50 million over the next 6 years. Another area is metering, billing, and customer service. And we're looking at putting $1.3 million into these projects and about $14 million over the next 6 years. This includes our advanced meter infrastructure. We should be rolling out and replacing the final 30,000 meters there. And we're also looking at replacing the billing system over the next several years. And that's why we have the larger 6-year forecast there. This is an interesting one, which is going to take more discussion, and we will be back talking about it in more detail. We currently are located with 35 people in City Hall and 60 people in lease space off-site. So we're actually proposing to look at construction of a building. It would be funded primarily from the sale of land. Now, this one needs to be talked about in conjunction with the City Hall space, the city, and the use of this campus, and we'll be back talking to you more about that on this project. So this will take more discussion. Then finally, we got our fiber optics control and technology projects. I mean, this includes our fiber optic system. It also includes our SCADA system, which is a supervising control and data acquisition, but it oversees and manages the electric system. Cybersecurity is a huge issue for us and all the power companies and electric systems in the United States. We're also continually going through and upgrading our control systems and other equipment. So we're proposing about $2.5 million in the coming fiscal year and about $13 million over the next 6 years. So with that, I'll turn it over to the city manager. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, John. And Mayor,
John.
last but not the least, other projects. Oh, can you just go to the next slide? Oh, okay, no, that's fine. Thank you. Thank you. So real quickly, Mayor, these are the other departments. These may not be large projects, but nonetheless, they're very important projects. Mission Library, we just talked about it earlier. There's no new funding needed. We'll see how the bids come in. However, the money is budgeted right now, but we are working on the Mission Branch Library renovation or upgrades. Similarly, at the library, we're also looking at the automated materials check-in and sorting machine, which will be about $400,000. IT is truly engaged in bringing a single platform to the entire city. Previously, some departments had, for example, the GIS system, they were using it, others were not. So I had charged the IT director to come up with a standardized approach, and they are really engaged in that. So I'm very happy to share with you that that's what they're doing. Infrastructure and security, which obviously is very important. Every day there's some kind of a threat or the other from cybersecurity. Also, later on the agenda, we'll talk about a new outsourcing contract, and this is a major component of that. Our FMS system needs upgrades as well. And also we get the PEG HD live stream and AV refresh, which is the money we get from firms like Comcast. And then we use that to, for example, we'll be using that money to improve the council chambers as well. And lastly, going to police and fire, as you can see, the CAD system replacement and security upgrades, which are very important for the police building. Countywide radio system, you've had a briefing on that, and we continue to fund that activity as well. At the fire station, all of our infrastructure is getting old. While we don't have any money to replace the fire stations or really do big-time rehabs, at least we are doing the analyses and studies. So just to have plans on the books as funding becomes available so we can either replace or upgrade those. Similarly, protective equipment replacement and technology upgrades at fire station as well. So this is kind of an overall glimpse of the CIP. Part of it we'll also talk about next week because the capital project reserve, which is the general fund, will give you an overall view of the general fund, where we are and where there's a need to generate more revenue sources. So money is not just coming in, whereas the needs are growing. So we'll talk about that next week. So with that, I'll leave it here, and staff is available to, receive your comments and answer any questions.
Okay, very good. Thank you very much for the presentation. I like how you have each department come up. It's very helpful to know what projects each department are working on for the overall picture. So, council, is there questions, comments, directions, anything? I know this is part of the joint study session and no action's going to be taken. Are there any comments? Councilmember O'Neill and then Councilmember Watanabe.
So thank you, Madam Mayor. City Manager, we're talking about that, funds are becoming a little tighter, and the needs are growing, and the community has a lot of expectations for things that they want to see completed. But obviously, that's partially, all of us working together have to figure out how to prioritize the funds. Do you have any thoughts about how we might be able to generate other more revenues to be able to do more work or speed up the schedule of some of the infrastructure improvements? I know there's a lot of concerns in the community, and you've expressed to me, I've repeated, you're talking about having nightmares about every pipe under the street breaking all at once. So any thoughts you might have about how we might be able to, it sounds like a very reasonable plan, but address our issues and our needs more aggressively?
Yes. So thank you for that question. We'll come back to you next week with some ideas also when we talk about operating budget. But revenue sources, like Angie mentioned in her presentation, the SB1, that'll give us about $2.5 million a year. There's new Measure B coming in. But even despite those, we still have a shortfall. Council had set the goal in the street category, the pavement condition index, to bring it back to 80, but with what we have plus what we'll get, we are still short of funding to reach that goal. So we have to continue to look for those. Another idea is that, while we continue to work towards getting grant funding, I think there's more opportunities there. So we have not, I'm just toying with the idea at this point. A lot of agencies, for example, have staff focused on grants, and then it pays for itself. So we are looking into that. If definitely there's sources that we're not tapping into and there's enough to come in, then it makes sense to add staff. Otherwise, we can also engage some consultants for shorter periods. And then lastly, but it's not very popular, some cities have gone to infrastructure fees, tax, citywide things. We have to look at all those alternatives in order to fund all the activities. Our infrastructure is really getting old. Our utilities are 60, 70 years old, and sometimes you hear about it, but we are constantly working on minor breaks, minor leaks here and there that you don't, or public doesn't find out except that immediate neighborhood. But those are the kinds of dangers that are out there.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Watanabe?
Thank you. I just had a quick question. This is for water and sewer utilities. Regarding the new and replacement of wells, I just was calculating out for the fiscal year, the upcoming fiscal year, the cost to do some new replacement wells would be about $700,000, but over the 6-year forecast, it's $5.2 million. And I realize it seems like there are fluctuations in certain forecasts, but that was, it's like, I'm figuring 7 times 6 is 42, so it should have been 4.2 million, but it's 5.2 million. So I wondered if there was, a mistake or there's an expected, like, big increase over in one of the years.
Yeah, good question. But we would normally start out in 17, 18 and do a preliminary design. So that wouldn't actually be the drilling of the well. Over the 6-year period, we're looking at about probably two wells. So every 2.5 years, we'd probably drill it, take 2.5 years to do a well. So we're really looking at probably 2 wells, maybe getting a preliminary design on a 3rd well. But it's a long and drawn out process, doing drilling for new wells. So hope that answers the question.
Yes, it does. Thank you.
Sure.
I know I'm going to have to go to the public, but City Manager, what's the process for this capital improvement budget? Will we see it again in June, or do we have another study session on this at a later
No,
time?
we had not planned another study session. We were going to receive comments today from public and yourselves.
Okay.
And we already have CAC, the Citizens Advisory Committee comments.
Okay.
But once we have those, we'll pull those all together and bring it to you as a final budget on June 13th.
For discussion, public discussion.
And approval.
And
Because
approval.
July 1, we have to have a new budget. So
Okay.
that's the, however, even at that time, if you have any additional comments.
We can always submit them
that
to you. I get things on a
errata, or
regular
there's some
basis.
terminology we can clean up afterwards, too.
Okay. Okay, so this will be revised even further?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, right.
All right. Seeing no other council lights, is there any member of the public would like to speak on the capital improvement budget? Rod, did you have any cards on this? Okay, thank you. Please come forward.
Yeah, I didn't see that on the thing, or I would put a card in. Over the last probably 6-8 months, there have been some comments about security infrastructure around the stadium and utilizing maybe the City Place area as a way to look at different kinds of innovation where there's noise issues around Great America and things like that. And there was talk about maybe looking at your street light utilities being infrastructure or being able to build on that. At some point, it was talking about that. And I was just, I didn't see, I know you're just giving high level, and I haven't dived into any of the details of like your IT technology CIP. But where are the kind of advanced technologies that the city looks for in terms of prototyping and innovating, and how is that money allocated, or where would that come from? Who pays for that? How is that identified? And are you looking at utilizing your street infrastructure for better wireless technologies like you do today, but with next generation ones with audio video capabilities and maybe a kind of generation 2 internet services and some of those things that, especially around the stadium where there's potential for noise disruptions or things like that to monitor a little more closely. That's it. Thank you.
Okay, very good questions. We'll get to those at the end. City Manager, do you have those? I'm sure IT would like to talk about that a lot. Ms. Bress.
Hi there. First of all, big congratulations to Andy. This was a great presentation and very well done, and laying out the details. Such an improvement is just remarkably and wonderful to see. So thank you, Andy. I'm hoping that another presentation to the CAC is forthcoming, because we were very preliminary in what we saw at the Citizens Advisory Committee. So I hope that she can work with that group and have it come on their agenda again so we can look at where we stand on all this. There was a mention of SB1 and Measure D. It would help, instead of ladling alphabet soups, if you would kind of explain what you're talking about instead of just dropping names and numbers and talk about what they are. I think that helps all the public. I would really like to understand where the public involvement is in all this process of doing the budgeting, so that we understand as the public what the trade-offs are, what we looked at, what fell off the list, why one was chosen after the other. The visibility into the public process and the public involvement, once again, I don't see it, and I'd like to know where that is. The council's made it a dedication to involve the public for open and transparency, but I haven't seen an improvement in the public involvement in this process again. Lastly, it's nice to have park benches improved, but could we please stop making them black and stop making them metal? Somebody's not thinking about sitting on a black bench that's metal when you're taking out a piece of wood. Thank you.
Yeah. Anyone else? Please come forward. Welcome.
Thank you. My question is related to the public comments on the budget. I just wanted to know whether the slide deck which was shared here today, is it available on the City of Santa Clara website so that some of us can go, any one of us who wants to go there and check it out and then provide the feedback or comments? And how can we provide the comments, because I'm new to this process. Oh, thank you.
Yeah, thank you. We'll answer all these questions. Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, City Manager, some of those questions.
Okay, yes. So Mr. Bartan asked about technology around the stadium. Well, as for a stadium, council has approved a contract with a consultant to install noise monitors. Those will go on poles, so that's a start of that kind of technology and all the other things. In all honesty, we are looking to the City Place project to be the innovation ground for all these new technologies, kind of building a smart city of its own and the vicinity, so we are looking forward to that. So right now, he's correct, we don't have anything in the budget, but we are looking to those development type of projects to kickstart that kind of technology work. Another Citizens Advisory Committee meeting, if council directs us, we will go back to them. There's nothing to really keep back at staff level. We've given the overview today. It's just use of resources and time that it takes. We're not avoiding it. That's why we went there in February. But we are happy to go back again and share with them a little more detail. SB1, the question was, what's the acronym for? That's the Senate Bill 1 at state level, is Senator Jim Bell's bill. And that's like a 30-year, over $3 billion transportation funding source. So based on the mileage of streets and everything, we expect to get about $2.5 million a year for streets. Thank you. Its attorney has correctly pointed out it's the gas tax. Black benches, I'll defer to our Director of Parks and Recreation. We'll see what color suits better. And then website and how to receive comments. I know I can share with you that this presentation will be on our website. Will it be there tomorrow? Maybe Jennifer can speak to that. Come on up. I like putting staff on the spot, so.
Thank you. Jennifer Yamaguma, Community Relations Manager. And yes, the PowerPoint for tonight, all of the meeting PowerPoints for tonight and any information passed out at the dais is put on the website through the clerk's office as post-meeting material. And if there are any other comments that are handed out as a speaker from the public, then that also gets scanned in on the website.
So Jennifer, could you just explain how they would go to find that?
How they can comment back
We know
to
how to
us.
find it, but they don't know how to find it.
Yes, I agree with that. And Jennifer, we may want to highlight the budgets on our front pages.
Sure.
As this is budget season, put the capital improvement budget and the proposed operating budget on the front so they don't have to find a meeting and then post meeting material.
Sure.
So make it very.
We can definitely put it on the homepage, and I will point out that the proposed budgets are on the finance page already today, and
Okay,
so we can look through those as well, and they're all sectioned out and OCR'd, so you can view all of that and search for the keywords.
And Mayor, the low-tech answer to that question also is you can always call the city manager's office or write to us at manager@santaclaraca.gov.
Okay, also, I know in the last couple of weeks, since we had that smart city convention in Santa Clara, and I know Councilmember Watanabe's been attending all sorts of smart city events, and we had a huge Japanese delegation here where we were talking about smart city and things that we're looking at doing in Santa Clara. Could we have our IT director come up and talk about some of the things that we're looking at? Because I think we're looking, you know, a little bit more than noise monitors around the stadium. There's other things that we're doing. So if that's okay with you, City Manager, if you can.
Yes, Mayor.
Gaurav
So you
come
can
up.
give an overview like you shared with the delegation today.
Yeah, I think it's very interesting.
Thank you, Mayor. Gaurav Garg, IT Director and CIO. Yeah, it's been very exciting to attend that Smart City Conference with you and, of course, the Japanese delegation today. We've got a lot going on to be proud of. And so I think the idea here is taking a holistic picture of a lot of the city departments and needs and finding out what those touch points are where we can apply those smart city type technologies to take it into the next level. I think the first part of it is the foundation itself, and we've got 180 applications throughout the city that are providing services, just like agenda management system or CAD 911 system. And some of these systems, about a third of our systems are legacy applications that need replacement. And they don't have the hooks to connect to a modern smart city type environment. So we've been, over the past few years, rapidly being based on budget, replacing a lot of the technology, preparing all of the GIS foundation, and putting together the framework in which the smart city frame can work in. With that said, with the stadium, the day it went live, all of the security from the traffic, the police, and the fire emergency response, all of that information is going into one single pane of glass that the commanders in the situation room and the command room use every game, every event. And that is all smart city-based, sensor-based, with video cameras, with all of the officers carrying iPhones that can be monitored throughout the stadium. So there's a lot that the police chief has told me not to share with the whole community because these are the competitive advantage for him and his officers. But there's a lot of technology and visibility as situational awareness that's going into play every day. So there's that. Traffic management is the next big area. And I know Rajiv and I and the traffic engineer and a lot of the folks there have been acting very diligently in putting some of that technology in place there. So I know there's a lot more to be said, but there's a lot more to come as well. And I know that the city manager's office is very engaged in putting together a more holistic idea. One of the challenges and opportunities with smart city is there's a lot of point solutions that are suited to one particular department. So the water department might be looking at something. That same application might have applicability in the electric utility. So connecting horizontally all of the city applications, taking a holistic view, something like the city place, just once in a lifetime opportunity to start from the ground up and not have to repeat some of those aspects. So I hope that helps.
Thank you. And also, as things progress in this world and with smart cities and everything that's happening, I mean, I want us to look for ways to help with public safety, especially not just around the stadium, but around the city. You know, things that we can do as a city to assist with keeping everyone safe, our residents and our businesses and everyone else. I think that there's, you know, trends of things that I heard about at this conference and convention that can really help us, you know, in so many ways in the city. So I want to make sure we're always looking towards that, since we are the center of what's possible here in Santa Clara and the center of Silicon Valley, that we're keeping up with what's happening that can really make our quality of life better and safer here in the city. Anyone else? Well, Gaurav's up here. Thank you.
One more comment, just on that note, in the police department, they've, in the last couple of years, put body-worn cameras. They're collecting all this video that we're now connecting and putting into the cloud. The police chief and his department is looking for a new CAD RMS system that does have those smart capabilities and are connected. So there's work underway on that front too.
Okay, very good. Thank you. Thank you. Councilmember Davis?
Technology, had to turn the button on. So, City Manager, I would like to, the questions that came up were another presentation to Stacy. Could you also do that or schedule that and have some more community input on the budget process that we have going on before June 13th? Would that be possible? Could you do that for us?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
So what kind of action are you looking for this evening? If anything,
Nothing yet.
just
We've received
no
your
action?
guidance, your direction, and we'll come back to you on June 13th. And
Okay.
Mayor, with your indulgence, one person I also want to acknowledge, he's sitting quietly in the corner there, is our Assistant City Manager, Alan Cortori. He pulled this whole presentation and the whole thing together.
Oh, there
Did
he
he
is.
escape? See, he's sitting
Alan.
quietly there.
We like it, Alan. You can stand up and say, yeah, yeah. Broken foot, that's okay. Get up here. No, kidding. Okay. Well, thank you very much, and thank you for the public for your comments. We'll put them all together and keep sending them in before June 13th. Okay, is our final, before June 13th, we'll be discussing putting the finishing touches on all the budgets then. And so our next budget study session for the operating budget is next Tuesday.
Next Tuesday, but the time will be different. We haven't still finalized it, but it'll be around 5:30.
Around 5:30
Around
next
5:30,
Tuesday,
so we'll have an
here in the
hour and a
council
half
chambers.
here in the council chambers
Okay.
on that study
A
session.
study session for the operating budget.
That's correct.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, now, next, we moved up item 18C, which was a Stadium Authority item, and that item is the U2 concert, May 17th, 2017, which is tomorrow, VTA service following conclusion of concert and enforcement of city noise ordinance. And I believe that Stadium Authority member O'Neill has a memo on this item. I don't know if you want to start here or start with our executive director.
Whichever he prefers.
Who wants to start?
Yeah, I mean.
Oh, okay,
Councilmember.
all right, I'll start. So I had requested that this item come on the agenda because I want us to look at some of our process for a couple of items related to the stadium, particularly, for midweek events and evening events, where like, this concert in particular, we had some fairly lengthy discussion in January, and we do have a 10 p.m. curfew. That's where the noise ordinance, particularly, it's probably not the right, but it goes into effect or kicks in. And the other element, as many people here know, I'm also represent Santa Clara and the Northeast cities on the VTA board this year. And so in discussion with Nuria Fernandez, the general manager at VTA, I became kind of concerned about what we were going to do for helping concert goers and our guests in our city safely return home after the concert. And so I think that there had been various discussions or, takes on the event. And, maybe once again, not the best communication where, the EIR as we keep talking about what the EIR for the stadium talked about, and one of the things was that this, and I, when I was on the planning commission, this was something we looked at extensively, that the location lent itself very well to being able to bring guests to and from the stadium via public transportation. And there's a light rail line right in front of the stadium, and there's heavy rail lines right to the east, and so some of my concerns were at that time of day that there were only very limited light rail trains, and at that time with one car, and whether by the time, if the curfew is not going to be probably honored, then that we potentially could have thousands of people who were going to be looking for transportation when they got out of the stadium, and that the light rail trains potentially could have left for the evening, and the Caltrain from Mountain View would have left. And I believe that at the first assessment from the stadium management company was that this was an event that, or this is at least what I found out just a few days ago, didn't fit the profile for an event that would use transit, which I didn't know that we had a profile. I thought we were assuming that there would be several thousand people, up to 5,000 to 6,000 people, every major event. This is a sellout concert, and I believe, isn't the theme park open that evening too?
Yeah, and convention center as well.
Yeah, and the convention center is booked that night and all of this. So I had concerns, and I will give a lot of credit to General Manager Fernandez for, in a time when the VTA is under budget constraints also, that she has committed the resources of VTA, and there are representatives of VTA here this evening if they want to comment or for us to have a little bit of dialogue to make sure that people were going to be able to get home. We've been talking a lot about the safety of the Creek Trail, and there's going to be a report on that later. And I'm very concerned about the safety of, people on foot and cycling to the stadium. But I was also very concerned and worried that at possibly 11 p.m. to midnight, that we might have potentially a couple of thousand people wandering around and who have been enjoying a concert for a number of hours, not knowing how to leave the area safely. I just wanted to, and so expense has been incurred, and in the past, there has been a lot of, things like for the Super Bowl, and, the transportation really worked well, and for a lot of, I think, the regular season NFL games, it's going better, but we haven't found a way to fully recover costs for the transportation. And my feeling was it's not fair for us to put that cost onto VTA. And I understand that there had been some ideas about possibly putting a transportation surcharge of, say, $1 onto tickets to help pay for those costs. And particularly in light of that, a major element in the environmental impact report was the use of public transportation. And so if we're not going to, address the costs that are necessary to have that public transportation, and here I know also, I believe, the executive director said he was assured by the management company that there would be enough parking spaces, but I once again acknowledge that this is a work day, and so unless the employers in the area are going to be letting, it could be that they are letting some of their employees go home early so that spaces can be available for concert guests to park. So that was another issue. And one of my other concerns was that I felt that the communication to the public was very mixed. Like if you looked at the Levi Stadium website, that on one page you could go and you would say the best way to arrive at Levi Stadium is via VTA. And then if you looked at other places, it said no special arrangements have been made for transportation after this concert. So it was kind of like travel at your own risk. So as I said, I just want to make sure that every guest that comes to our city and comes to Levi Stadium has a wonderful experience. And I think if you came out of the stadium and realized that there were no light rail trains for you to take home, that you might have a bad taste in your mouth. So I just wanted us to kind of have some dialogue about that and maybe think about what we need to do. We'll see how, many of us are going to be there at the stadium tomorrow night to watch, to look, to figure out if we can look for a solution in terms of pedestrians and cyclists to ensure their safety. So I don't know if we, I don't know if we want to be hanging around until the concert's over to see exactly what happens then. That was my purpose for putting this on here, and I also want us to look at that if it turns out that we've asked, or that a VTA on our behalf and Caltrain have incurred a lot of costs, that we look at what are we going to do about making them whole on that. And as I said, one thought is going forward, do we impose a surcharge on the tickets to cover transportation? So I would like some, response. And then, as I said, I see several, Inez Evans and Jim Lawson are here from VTA if we have questions of them about the preparations that VTA has made for tomorrow evening.
Maybe we can ask VTA if they'd like to make some comments now before
Very
we go
good.
into our discussion, our lively discussion. Welcome.
Well, thank you, Mayor Gilmore, members of the council. It is a great pleasure to be here. I would like to especially recognize Councilmember Watanabe, who serves so ably on our Policy Advisory Committee, and Director O'Neill, who is a true leader on the VTA Board of Directors. And it was thanks to her work, together with General Manager Fernandez, that we did recognize this as a problem. VTA had been having some discussions with the management the management organization. And we had heard that this may run past the regular time. Based on that, we did do some preliminary work about what it would take to cover that. And I know for the public, it's always a difficult thing to grasp, but the fare box revenue does not cover the cost of public transit. To give you an example, based on our history, we see that an event that would generate about 6,000 public transit riders from VTA would cost about $95,000. Of that, we might recover $30,000 in ticket revenue, which leaves you with a difference of $65,000. Now, Director O'Neill, I'm sorry, Vice Mayor O'Neill, have to get the right titles, refreshed our memory about the environmental document. And we had a good working relationship with the city, with Rajiv, the staff, and with the 49ers. We did, in the environmental document, indicate that there would be a need to compensate the taxpayers for this additional service. So we have, because of the concern about transporting people safely, done everything possible, including the good work we all did cooperatively on the Super Bowl, to make sure we did not have the problem that New Jersey Transit had when they did a Super Bowl. We are now at a point where, based on the financial reality, we will need to assess some fees for additional service that's done. It's not a question of overtime. I mean, train operators are controlled by the FRA. They can own, like an airline pilot, they only have so many hours they can work, and we only have so many of them. So there's a logistics side to this as well. We are bringing forward to the Board of Directors a policy for events, and it will include information about the size of the event and the cost that would be associated with it. You will see that on Thursday, and it will go to our board in June, so there will be some charges. And I will say, we respect the 49ers and their organization and their assessment of profiles. The concern that Member O'Neill brought up with the general manager was also a concern that we heard from Santa Clara public safety people, as well as for our own public safety people. If we don't do something, the sight of maybe 1,000 people trying to get on a single rail car that holds 150 people is not something anyone wants to deal with. So we will step up and we will do it, and we'll work cooperatively to make sure that happens. Sorry, that was a little long-winded.
No, it's okay.
We do appreciate the opportunity to express that, and we're happy to answer any questions.
Staff? Brian, City Attorney?
Well, I just wanted to remind the council that in the management agreement with Manco, there is an ability for the council to suggest improvements to the management practices. And this perhaps, what I would hope to do is we really document what happened both before the event as well as after the event to see how it works out from in terms of assessing their management activities with respect to this activity and this need for transportation, because that could form the basis for a notice under that section to them, to put them on notice that if their performance is less than up to the standard for these types of facilities, then we could send a notice to them and request them to have a management improvement plan. I also wanted to note that the transit access was also identified and discussed in the, I always forget what this stands for, the TMOP.
TMOP. Transit Management Operating Plan.
TMOP.
The TMOP, yes. I didn't want to say TMOP because I wasn't sure everyone would know what that is, but I have been reviewing it while we've been talking, and clearly there are requirements for providing public transit to stadium events on weeknight events, the larger weeknight events.
Okay, let's go down the line. Oh, city,
Mayor, just wanted to offer a couple of comments.
Director.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair. First of all, I also wanted to thank VTA. Mr. Lawson called me last Thursday, I think, to let me know of the situation. And, we worked together for a long time personally and as agencies also. So I'm really appreciative, to VTA for stepping up and providing that service. And Councilmember O'Neill, you're absolutely correct. The communication did not go well this time, at least since this came to light. It points to that. So I'm in discussion with Mr. Mercurio also on that subject. As far as the funding is concerned, yeah, we can definitely see, as Mr. Lawson pointed out, what it costs and what they recover. But that's been the case since the inception of this whole thing. So that's a separate discussion to be had. I just wanted to share with the board that in the past, that difference has not been paid. I think I'm told that there was only one opportunity or one event, which was the WrestleMania, but it was a different circumstance that they were also in San Jose, so there was shuttling of people from, San Jose to Santa Clara. So that event directly paid VTA. That's what I was told. But otherwise, for events, that difference has not been made whole for VTA. I recognize that there is a shortfall there, but that's a separate discussion to be had.
Thank you. Do you have questions of Mr. Lawson, or do you want to make comments? Because,
You go ahead.
yeah,
okay.
let's go with the questions first so that you're able to sit down.
Mr. Lawson, just a quick question.
Yeah.
So it said that U2 was 50,000 people were going to be in that stadium. Okay, so the number, and I think the estimation was between 5,000 or 6,000 people do use the light rail on Tasman. So you're speaking about extra cars being there and to carry these people to wherever they're going. So the stadium was not going to provide the services, or said that they don't need to have the cars there? Or how did this come about? Was there a conversation?
There was thank you for the question. It's an excellent question. There was conversation back and forth. I don't want to speak for their side to the conversation, but what we understood was there was a request to look at what it would cost to provide the additional service. And additional service is cars, operators, public safety officers, ambassadors, the whole thing. Because what would normally happen on a weekday is that you would have half-hour service at that time, which would end at 10 o'clock going in one direction and 11 o'clock in the other direction, with a one-car train which would fit 150 people. And I'm sure you've been out there. You've seen some of the crowds that come in. That's kind of
Like a subway system.
Public safety concern. We presented a proposal to the management group on May the 5th. We asked them to respond by May the 10th. We asked several times for a response. We did not receive a response. Following that, Mr. Batra and I had a conversation and understood, based on concerns that were being raised, that something had to give.
And the estimated time for all these people to get out of this concert is around 11 o'clock? So would you have to service until like midnight to get them all out of there, or?
Well, we tend to work until we have cleared the platforms.
Okay, thank you.
I have just a couple questions. One is, knowing that our curfew's at 10, and I noticed on the website it says this concert will be going past 11. How much of it was, first of all, it's a violation of our law, number one, that's kind of obvious. But secondly, how much of this had to do with the extension of time of the violation of the curfew versus your normal service?
It is my understanding that this is mainly based on, as you've described it, the violation of the curfew.
Okay. And then the second thing is, does VTA charge, like the SAP Center in San Jose, for their larger events? Do you charge for ridership for those types of things, or do you charge anyone else for large stadium or arena events?
That's an excellent question, and we have a policy that will give us direction to do exactly that. We do not at this point.
But
we
okay.
will.
But you don't at this point. Okay.
That's Thursday. That's the committee I chair on Thursday.
Oh, so Thursday you're going to start charging? Okay.
No,
Oh,
We'll
okay.
charge retroactively. That's
Okay, good. And then one other thing, because I was puzzled by this profile of who uses, do you have a profile of potential riders for an event like the U2 concert? Because it would seem to me that it's a weeknight, it's a busy area, there's other events going on that people naturally would want to use public transit more as opposed to less. So what's this profile of a user that this particular event didn't attract? Does VTA have a profile of why this event would make people get in their cars and want to drive as opposed to use public transportation? Because we're really trying to encourage the public transportation use, especially at the stadium.
Understood. An excellent question, Mayor Gilmore. That is not a profile that we have developed. I can understand that a company with expertise in this area may develop something like that. Our estimate is based upon our experience over the wide range of events that we've had since the stadium opened, and we feel pretty confident, as does our public safety captain, that we're right and they may not be.
Okay. All right. Very good. I think that's it for the questions from the authority board. Thank you very much for your presentation.
Thank you so much
You'll be
for the
here in case,
opportunity.
just in case we have some other questions.
We won't go away until you
Thank
tell
you.
us.
We're locking the door, but that's okay. Thank you. Authority member Watanabe.
Thank you, Mayor. And thank you, Mr. Larson, for being here as well. Okay, so this is where I come in. I mean, I agree, Mayor Gilmore, with a lot of comments that you made.
Oh, can I ask something? Is Manco here? Anyone from Manco? If you'd like to come up and speak before, anyone from Manco? All right, thank you. I'm sorry to interrupt you. Go ahead.
To be honest with you, none of this, we wouldn't be in this position if if people hadn't forgotten that we had a council meeting back in January, and the council had a vote 4-3 stating that we did not want the concert to go beyond 10 o'clock because it's a weeknight and it's a Wednesday night, and we already have provisions, stating that events are not supposed to go beyond 10 o'clock on a weeknight. So to me, I mean, as much as what's being done right now is a violation of the law, I mean, there was planning that went into this, and that took place after that January meeting, and I would imagine that there was discussion about VTA, but did everybody forget that the council had requested or had a vote stating that 4-3, that the concert was not to go beyond 10 o'clock at night? So as a result of that, now we find ourselves in this position, VTA having to step up and have to put out additional transportation as a result, so people aren't stuck trying to find a way home, which would be very embarrassing a lot of ways around. And so I'm just really troubled by this, because why did we bother to have the discussion back in January? So based on this, I mean, clearly we need to sit down and talk about the ordinance. We need to flesh it out. We need to talk, the city attorney and I need to talk about this, because the whole purpose of bringing this up back in January was to talk about the noise ordinance and working with the people in the community up on the north side to make sure that their quality of life is not impacted by events like this. So obviously, we need to put more teeth into this. Yeah, if they go past 10 o'clock tomorrow night, what's going to happen? What is the city going to do as a result? Send a letter and $1,000 fine, basically saying you violated the curfew. This is your penalty. Well, I think we obviously, based on what's happened now, we need a stronger penalty, and we need more teeth in our ordinance to make sure that this doesn't happen again. Because obviously, it's going to happen again. In October, Coldplay is playing again on a Wednesday night. It wasn't brought to the council or discussed, but we know that it's coming down the pike. And we need, I mean, there's a reason why we have ordinances to protect our city, but when the law is violated, then we have to take action, and we have to take strong action. So I'm sorry that the VTA was put in this position. Thank you, Council Member O'Neill, for bringing it forward. I hope everything goes well tomorrow night, but obviously, we need to take stronger action as a result of what's happened. So that's all.
Staff?
Yeah, I just wanted to remind the council that the stadium manager's attorneys have admitted to me that under the management agreement, they have the manager, stadium manager, has a fiduciary duty to the city. We are the property owner, they are the agent. We are the principal, they are the agent. They are simply our hired manager. In that context, they have a fiduciary duty to the stadium authority. And in a situation where they have come to you and said, can we stay open? Can we have the event go past 10 o'clock? And you have specifically said no. This goes far beyond simply a fine of whatever of the noise ordinance. If someone has a fiduciary duty to you, their wholesale failure to follow your very clear direction to not go past 10 o'clock could be far more liability than that. And I think we need to really have a very blunt conversation with our manager. You have a contract with them to operate this stadium at a very high level. They have represented that they can operate these events. These are non-NFL events. There are other people that can operate NFL events, that do operate non-NFL events. And I think we need to compare this level of management, this quality of management, this integrity of management to other management agreements, and see if there is some grounds for perhaps waking up our manager to their duties under the contract.
Okay. All right, is there any more, Councilmember Watanabe asked a question, but did you have questions for staff or no? I thought you had a question at the end, maybe not. Okay.
I just made a couple
Yeah,
of
we
comments.
took it as a
just-
comment,
y-
but we agree with.
Want to comment?
We agree with Councilmember Watanabe. Under the current agreements, that's all we can do is cite them, whatever but, you know, if board chooses to put more teeth into it, and so.
Well,
we'll
I
follow
don't
your
know if you
direction.
can answer this question, City Manager. Well, I don't know that it was necessarily a question, but just my comment that, we had, council took a vote 4-3, saying, we don't want the concert to go beyond 10 o'clock, and yet there were meetings thereafter, discussing the event and preparing for it, and did everybody just forget that we had a vote on this?
No, definitely not. Staff is fully aware of your direction. And it's not like in the meetings, the operation or planning meetings, that staff was telling the manager to go ahead past 10. That has not been said. It's up to the stadium manager to follow those. They heard clearly also what the board's direction was. Yes, staff was in the meetings, but it wasn't like staff was directing them to do so. So we are prepared now, and like I said, under the current agreements, if they go past 10, they will be cited, but that doesn't have much teeth in it. So.
No, it doesn't. No, I agree.
So right on their website today, it says the concert is expected to go, to be over by 11 p.m. and that the last train will depart 11:30. So I just want to make a couple comments. First of all, I want to thank Authority Member O'Neill, who Friday frantically called and said, we have a big problem. We're going to have a big problem on Wednesday if we don't do something now. So she took action as a VTA board member, as a Stadium Authority board member, to work with the VTA to make sure that we were going to be safe and that the people that attended the U2 concert would have light rail home. Because the way it works, there was going to be 5,000 or 6,000 people, and when you looked at the Levi Stadium website, on one page, it said there will be no light rail service, find your own way. Use Uber or something like that. On the other page, it said, after a much discussion on Friday, a new item popped up that said, yes, now there'll be light rail service, but it does say, but maybe not enough light rail service to get to the U2 concert, but there will be some on the way home. But the reason we're in this situation is because the 49ers who manage the stadium decided on their own to violate our city law, which is our noise ordinance, which we clearly voted on in January, and we clearly, they're stating right on their website they intend to violate our city ordinance. So I think that because they're violating the ordinance and the curfew, it's created problems for VTA, it's created problems for Santa Clara, and it's really going to create problems for our neighborhoods and our residents that we promised after the Beyonce concert when they went well past 10 o'clock, and we had numerous complaints from the neighborhood. We vowed that we were not going to let that happen again. So we voted against extending the curfew to 11, and here we are. They're just openly and deliberately violating that against our laws and against our particular council vote. So this sets a bad precedent for everything. I know, oh, now we just have to charge them $1,000. No, we need to send a notice that they're in violation. They plan to violate both the management agreement, the city curfew law, and I agree with Authority Member Watanabe, let's go put some teeth in the ordinance now. It's forcing us to put teeth in. If money's the only thing you're going to listen to, then we're going to have to put money as a violation. It gives us a little bit of time to work on that and do what we can legally do, but we have to protect our community. We have laws for a reason, and when our managers are deliberately violating them, causing issues for VTA, for us, for our residents, we can't allow that to happen, period. So, Stadium Authority Attorney, what direction do you need from us to send notice that this is potentially, well, it's on their website, they're going to violate. So what do we do now to send notice?
Well, I could send them notice tomorrow saying that you were given clear direction. You asked for permission, you were not granted permission, and now you have clearly violated the will of the other contracting party here, and we are the manager, and this is a breach of fiduciary duty. You willfully violated our direction. In addition to, I would not stop at just, this is a $1,000 fine. I mean, I would characterize this as an anticipated breach of the contract. And they should have to compensate the city for all its efforts for having had to deal with this. I mean, we hired them to manage these events for us. This was not the core of the building of the stadium. This was not the core of the relationship. The core of the relationship was to have an NFL stadium with NFL events in it. We chose to make them manager of the non-NFL events, and obviously we're having to do a lot of managing over the top of them because they're not adequately managing the non-NFL events. So I think I will look at what kind of letter I can write. Tomorrow I will base my efforts on notifying them that we believe that going past 10 o'clock will be a anticipatory breach of their management agreement, and that they should make every effort to make the event end by 10. And then I would like to have more time to explore the possibility of what kind of letter we write in terms of bringing them into a better management plan. They need to improve their management.
Well,
very
I think,
clearly.
Yeah, we shouldn't even be talking about this.
Right. No, obviously, we should not. They are.
Member O'Neill has spent all of Friday trying to work this out. I mean, and good. I'm happy that we're going to have the trains available for for the visitors to Levi Stadium. We must make sure, everyone has a pleasant and safe experience at the stadium.
Well, I mean, to the
So-
extent they're watching, you're on notice. And, I mean, I will write to them tomorrow morning and let them know that, we would consider going beyond 10 o'clock to be a breach of their management agreement, and that they need to make sure that the event does not go past 10 o'clock.
Okay.
And then after that, we can discuss what other types of remedies we can assess against them for the, what I would consider to be a breach of the agreement. It's not simply the noise issue and going beyond 10 o'clock, it's the failure to provide adequate transportation to and from the event, which one would think is within their management responsibilities.
Authority Member Mahan.
Yeah, thank you. There's been quite a few references to the noise ordinance. I'm looking on our website. I can't find it. Where is our noise ordinance? What, in the city code? What section is it in?
I think it's under ordinances.
I'm looking.
You found it, it's under ordinances, policies.
I'm
It's under, I think it's safety and health, Section 9, Article 1.
Yeah, the codes that I looked up prior was 18.114.020, and the other one was 1.05.070B. And those were cited in the Beyonce concert. That's all the reference.
And then what about the term of the management contract? Where is it in that document about the fines or the going over time, the time limits?
There's no specific section of the management agreement that talks about that.
Okay.
Okay. All right, I have a couple of cards. Howard Gibbons, please come forward, and then Scott Lane. Those are the only two cards I have. Welcome.
Hello. You guys will come out to my neighborhood tomorrow, so I hope you at least slow down and yell at me and wave. I'll be out there at the train station. I don't work for Amtrak, but Amtrak will be running a train. We'll be leaving the Great America Station 11:30 tomorrow night. So there will be one heavy rail taking people out. I actually hope we have a Rosanna Deanna moment tomorrow, where it all comes out, they shut down, and everybody goes, oh, never mind. I hope that happens. But I caught you guys last couple of times on the Facebook meetings and everything, and you guys were going 12:30, heads bopping, and people are talking. I got this great idea for this bike to go fly over and land and all this. It only costs $12 million and this and that. And it's like, I sit out there every event. I'm there. I see the bicyclists that come by. You're going to spend millions of dollars. You guys are beating yourself to death, staying up late at night to deal with this. And I could probably count the people who have to get rerouted on both those hands. There's really not that many people who have to go around. I don't see just miles and miles of bicyclist riders when you guys have events, when you shut down the trail. So if you all want to really do it, shut down the trail and come out where I'm at and watch what bicyclists really come by. I've already heard there's going to be tons of bicyclists out there tomorrow because you guys are coming out. They all want to be seen with you and everything else. Guess what? That's not what normally happens. So, and I'll put you to work if you come out by me. Thank you.
Maybe when we're done, we can have some hot dogs, too.
Hey, let me know ahead of
Give
time.
you some business.
Let me know
Yeah.
ahead of time. I'll bring Italians with grilled onions.
Thanks. Let's not talk food. Thank you. Scott Lane? Tell him I'm on a diet.
Hello, Ms. Mayor, Councilperson O'Neill. Thank you for catching this. Two issues. Number one, why didn't staff alert ahead of time? And if I can actually correct VTA a little bit, which is, as a land use person, I can tell you that even if it ended on time, they wouldn't have enough trains. Let me remind you that the efficiency project that VTA put in for this stadium, primarily to look good for the 49ers, was upwards of $60 million that was taken from dual track that was supposed to go from South San Jose to Gilroy for Caltrain. So you robbed Peter to pay Paul. So what has this abusive relationship with the 49ers gotten us? Well, where did it start? The Measure J went from $150 million to $850 million. The Yorks actually saved $300 to $500 million by having us take ownership of the stadium. We only charged them $26,000 for the first, 10, 20 years for their 11-acre complex that should be worth millions of dollars in rent. And for 60 years, it's been up to $26,500. Why do I bring this up? I'm tired of us being Tina Turner, taking it hit after hit after hit from Ike Turner. We have a completely unprofessional organization of Manco. Let's call it what it is. They're the 49ers. This is not the Eddie D 49ers. This is the Yorks. All they care about is money. All they care about is making us look like idiots, and they come in and make a lot of money. The Creek Trail, for 3 years we know about this. Issue after issue, I hope you actually come back, not only get teeth, ask for percentages of revenue from them. I hope you actually give the city attorney some staff time, literally hundreds of thousands of dollars, and actually try to charge the 49ers to do a historical analysis of what else that they have breached their contract. I would use this and all the other opportunities that they have purposely done. For example, the Creek Trail and others ignoring directives straight from the city council. They are giving you the bird straight, clear, and simple.
Thank you,
We need
Scott.
the city attorney to go after the 49ers for breach of contract.
Thank you. All right, Kurt Vartan, and then that's it for my cards.
Good evening, Stadium Authority members. So when you described, when the city attorney described the role of, they're basically kind of your employee, you have a contract relationship with them. If I equate that to a standard business model where I hire somebody and they deliberately disobey a direct order that's not illegal, that's called insubordination. And insubordination is a ability to terminate with cause without paying unemployment benefits and all the other things because they're violating the agreement that you have when you work there that you will do what's in the best interest of your employer. And if your employer dictates, I was at that meeting when you guys voted on it, that you specifically said 10 o'clock, period, end of story, full stop. And to basically ignore that and to take liberties and to publicize it on a website that you can expect this to be the case is the level of respect is just, I don't even know, it's just unbelievable that a professional organization, a world-class organization like the 49ers would behave like that. So I'm going to offer a suggestion on how to put a little bit of teeth into something like that. I don't know about for future events, but for this, I'm glad this current event is taken care of. Obviously, everybody's going to be well cared for, and there's going to be some fallout. But why don't you analyze what the profitability from this event was for the 49ers or for the management company and sue them for that amount and just take it all as a violation. And if that doesn't wake them up, I don't know what will. But wait a minute, we don't know how much that is because they won't tell us about any non-stadium events. I was at all those meetings too when they don't show up to any of the stadium audit meetings asking for those profits and those details.
Thank you. Anyone else? Please come forward.
Well, good catch, Teresa. Otherwise, we'd have a boatload of people standing there screaming, "What idiots did this?" If VTA was made aware May 5th, we're less than 48 hours from this event. Why didn't we know before this? The planning meetings that have been happening at the stadium about this event, who from staff was there? And why didn't they make the Stadium Authority, Council, somebody aware? Whoever's not doing that job also needs to be put on notice for insubordination and maybe grounds for immediate termination too, because they're not doing their job either. Then you get to, there is a responsibility that they are supposed to have a parking plan submitted to the city and the Stadium Authority for approval before any weekday events take place. Where's that plan? Did it get approved? Oh, no? I'm shocked. So we can add that to a list of their, failure to perform list. And this profile of who's going to use the VTA, I think the stadium management company has forgotten who they work for. It's not their stadium, it's our stadium. And we're the ones that are going to have mud on our face when you've got 6,000 people wanting to go home. I think it's an intentional flip the bird to you guys, so we look stupid. And we really are stupid if we don't do something about this. How many times are we going to let Ike beat Tina? I love that analogy. And lastly, I keep saying over and over again, what are the consequences? We have rules, but we have no penalties. We should do what the winery does up in Saratoga. 10 o'clock, power goes off, the music stops. Power's off, music's off, lights comes up, travel home safely. And they've done it, and they still do it. So we do have that power. Flip the switch. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Please come forward. Welcome.
Hassam Hagag here. I'm angry. I think a lot of us in this room are angry. I think tomorrow night, a lot of residents in the North Side are going to be very, very angry because we made a promise to them that we would not go past 10 p.m. And the 49ers were here in January and they begged and pleaded and went on their knees asking for us to go past 10. And the council voted 4-3. Thankfully, 4 of you had the sense to vote for that. The other 3, one of them isn't here. And I'm appalled that another one of the 3 doesn't even know the city ordinance for noise when they're a council member and a longtime council member and ex-mayor at that. And that's in section 9.10.
I just found it.
And it says, well, you could have Googled for 30 seconds instead of making it look like it didn't exist. And please don't interrupt me in my time. And in Schedule A, it says that of 9.10, that for a commercial office or any sort of industrial or commercial enterprise, that between 7 a.m. to 10 p.m., the decibel level is at 65, and between 10 p.m. and 7 a.m., the allowed decibel level is at 60. So to allude or to question our city attorney or our city manager or stadium manager as to whether or not there even exists a noise ordinance in our city code, I think is cognitive dissonance. And to allude that there is no clause in our contract with our management company that they don't have to abide by the laws of the city is trying to cover their asses for them. And I'm angry. I'm really angry because this is our city. It's our stadium. And if they won't play by the rules, then we got to throw the book at them and take it back. Thank you.
Thank you. It's also in the conditions of approval for the stadium, the time periods. Anyone else? Oh, Authority Member Mahan?
Yes, thank you. And I do apologize to you, Mr. Hagag. I did not mean to interrupt you. I was just stating the fact that I had just found it when you mentioned it. And I was not trying to allude or imply or anything else that these things did not exist. I was just asking out of needing information to find it as a shortcut without having to scroll through, because I was not finding it. And it actually wasn't in the sections that were cited by our chief, which I looked up, have to do with the fines part of it, but not the ordinance itself. So I was never trying to allude that they didn't exist. Quite the contrary, I know that they existed. I worked on the noise ordinance in reference to the old quad and trying to calm down our student population out there using the noise ordinance to do so. So yes, I'm quite well aware of that we have one. I was just merely looking for a shortcut to get the exact code number so I could easily look it up.
Okay, thank you.
We will.
Anyone else? Please come forward if you'd like to speak. Okay. Authority Board, do you need direction? City, I want to call you City Attorney, Stadium Authority Attorney. Do you need any motion? Do you need direction? Oh, Authority Member O'Neill.
Well, I just wanted to make a comment that, I will be involved Thursday when the first pass at the congestion management plan and, program and planning committee meeting for VTA, where we'll start looking at what VTA management is proposing. But I do think at some point here when VTA has kind of vetted some ideas, that perhaps we might want to look at the idea of a transportation surcharge. I mean, I hate to say it, I mean, the tickets are very expensive, and what people have to pay for a drink or except for the hot dog dudes, hot dogs. But if you buy a hot dog inside the state, I mean, it is very expensive, that $1 or maybe $2, I don't know, something that we might want to look at. And I don't know what our capability of adding a surcharge to the tickets might be to help cover transportation costs. That we might be funneled, or.
I think we should probably bring different ideas, several different options in terms of how we pay for this back. I mean, you can build into, if this becomes an expense of having one of these events that the stadium authority has to pay for having the event, then they could just build that into the charges for the tickets. I mean, there's a whole mixture of how do you set ticket prices. You look at what your expenses are. I don't know enough about those as we're sitting here to know whether it makes sense to just have them build it into the ticket charges. Do we do a parking surcharge, because it's, to the extent you're parking, you're bringing a car, that's creating more traffic, which necessitates more people wanting to, there's different options you might consider about how to pay for this. I think sitting here tonight, we don't have a good understanding of what those options might best be. Certainly, in terms of do I need direction, if you'd like to make a motion to direct me to do something, that's fine. I think I understand the consensus that tomorrow morning I will send a notice saying that we consider your apparent intention to not end the event by 10 o'clock to be in direct violation of what we decided as the stadium authority to be an anticipatory breach of the management agreement.
We should probably have that as a motion.
Okay, that's fine.
Someone making that a motion?
To direct
The stadium authority attorney.
Is it on the agenda per se, or should we do it by consensus?
No,
I'm not, I mean, the main reason to vote on it at all is simply to give me the assurance that I'm doing the right thing.
Exactly. I
And
think we should.
If you'd like to, that's fine.
Got a motion, Teresa?
Yes, so moved. Oh, Mr. Colstead's lights on, it looks like.
Is that a motion, Mr. Colstead?
I was just wondering if by doing that, we would be talking to them about a violation that hadn't occurred yet. Do we have to wait until?
It's occurred on the website.
No, this is,
It's already occurred.
There's actually a provision of contract law, which is known as an anticipatory breach of contract. And so what you can do is tell somebody, we understand you're about to breach the contract, please don't do that. And I almost think it's a good idea for us to do that so that they have the opportunity to mitigate their damages.
And it's not just the noise, it's already the transportation that we had to get involved in to get it going. I mean, there's two major issues here.
I agree. And then on the overall management of, or lack thereof, I think there's a separate section of the management agreement, which I think I would rather just bring it back at a later date for discussion about how we move forward with that. But there's a section of the management agreement which talks about if we deem their management to not be up to snuff, as it were, then we would notify them and we would engage in an effort to come up with a management improvement plan with them. So I think that there appears to be some need for that as well, but I would not suggest that we do that tonight. I would say that we bring that back.
Okay. All right, so tonight is just Authority Member Mahan?
Are we wading into a pool where we are getting into litigation matters? Because this is making me feel very uncomfortable if you're talking about breaching the contract and getting direction from the council to do something to put them on notice of anticipatory breach. To me, that seems it should be a matter of closed session. It's a matter of litigation, potential litigation. I am beginning to feel very uncomfortable, just because procedurally, I mean, it's one thing to bring the VTA and give you directions to go after and get the VTA funding or something to give you direction to recover the VTA, the extra VTA money, or to write a letter saying that, you know, this is the fine, saying what really is. But when you're starting to say anticipatory breach, obviously my attorney's antenna go up, and this is the beginning of litigation. So I'm feeling extremely uncomfortable.
All right, Authority Member O'Neill?
Well, at this point, I would be okay if we, following some of the guidance from the attorney, that I would be wanting to, at this point, to make a motion that we notify the management company that we need to recover the VTA funds for this, for what they're expending. And, it sounds like, Brian, that you're thinking maybe that we need to have a little counseling session with them before we perhaps use the language of the anticipatory breach.
No, that's not what I'm saying.
not what he said at
I'm very comfortable sending a notice saying, we understand that it looks like you are going to exceed the clear direction of the council to end the event by 10 o'clock. The management agreement says you have to obey all laws. This is a violation. If you produce noise past 10 o'clock, it looks like, you're going to be violating that. This is not filing a lawsuit. This is not anything other than saying, based upon the facts and circumstances we're aware of right now, we would hope that you would not breach the contract. We're not saying you're in breach of the contract. It's obviously before the time, but we would consider that to be an anticipatory breach if it indeed is true. And it would become a breach if you actually engage in these activities. I think it's incumbent upon us to notify them that we would consider there's potential liability for them under the contract, more than simply a slap on the wrist, which is, the $1,000 fine or whatever. I would hesitate to put anything, I wouldn't put anything in the letter about damages or how to recover anything or anything like that. What we're trying to do with the letter is to convince them to bring their activity within good management practices. When I was talking about the other aspect to it, I was suggesting putting nothing in the letter about that. What I would do is suggest coming back to you with a fuller discussion, whether it be within closed session or open session, about how do we invoke the other provision in the management agreement, which is about improving your management under this agreement.
And with that clarification, then, that I would make a motion that we do request that the Stadium Authority attorney send that letter tomorrow morning, first thing, to, I don't know if it's the management co-attorney, advising them of our concerns that they are in this situation of anticipatory breach.
I think the funding should be a separate motion, separate issue. All right, there's a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion second. So to the motion, Authority Member Mahan?
I still feel this, I was up to you, I was with you to a point in the first part of your analysis and what would go in the letter. And then I think it tips over into areas that should be discussed and dealt with in closed session. So I feel very uncomfortable. So for that reason, I will abstain.
All right, Authority Member Kolstad.
Thanks, Mayor. I just took Hassam's advice and Googled this, and this anticipatory breach is a term of law or of contracts that describes a declaration by a promising party to a contract that he or she does not intend to live up to their obligations under the contract. I mean, we intend to live up to our end, but it sounds like an anticipatory breach is where they tell us they're not going to follow the rules. Is that right, or did I read it wrong?
Okay, let's let him speak,
Okay,
please.
technically speaking, we're not, anticipatory breach is a way of suing somebody for breach of contract. I don't have to use the word anticipatory breach. We are anticipating that based upon their conduct at this point, if they were to go forward with what it looks like they're going to do, we would consider that to be a potential breach of the contract because they are managing this facility on our behalf to hold special events within the confines of the law and at our specific direction. They came to us and asked permission, can we go beyond 10 o'clock? And the Stadium Authority Board said no. So, you know, it's not exactly what Mr. Vartan said in terms of, you know, an employee, you know, violating a direct order of an employer, but essentially the employment relationship is essentially the same as an agent and a principal and agent relationship. We are the principal, they are the agent under this agreement. And they acknowledge that. That is the relationship. And when the principal tells the agent specifically not to do something and the agent does it, most people think that's wrong. And so we're telling them, what I would intend to tell them tomorrow is simply, if you do that, we as your principal and you as our agent, we think what you're going to do is wrong and a violation of this agreement. As to whether that means we're going to sue them, how much we're going to sue them for, if they breach it, these are all other questions. I think we really owe them official notice that they should not do what it looks like they're going to do. How you want to characterize that, it doesn't really matter. I just think we need a clear statement from the council that we told you not to do this, you're doing it. We don't think that's fulfilling your duties under the management agreement. And it could be as simple as that. You know, if you want to get tougher, we can go into closed session and we could talk about doing something tougher. So it's up to you. I mean, however you direct me, I will write a very direct communication to them that they better not do this.
Yeah, this is just Google. It's not
Yeah,
Black's
I understand.
Law
That's
Dictionary.
I understand. I'm trying to, you know, and this all came up in the very last minute here, and I'm doing the best I can in terms of giving you advice. We're not suing them. We're not making a decision to sue them. We're simply putting them on notice.
Putting them on notice and violation of the noise ordinance has caused problems with VTA and transportation and other things that we shouldn't be involved in the management of. City staff?
Simply clarifying the motion. The motion is by O'Neill with a second to direct the Stadium Authority Council to send a notice of potential anticipatory breach of the contract to Manco.
Say the motion second. Lights on the motion. And that passes 4 for 1 abstention and 1 against. Thank you. Do you have other issues here? Are we going to talk in the future about the payments and things like that? I don't want anything to affect what happens tomorrow.
I think maybe we'll wait and see what happens with, you know, let me have some discussion with some of the other VTA staff about what policy they may be looking at suggesting. And then maybe we can also get some financials of what happens this week and maybe gather some more data. And I can confer with our executive director as to an approach we might take.
And we can bring back an item
Bring back more information and an
Okay.
item about dealing with that. And like I said, I'm thinking maybe looking at a ticket surcharge or something.
Okay, so bring back some options
Yeah.
for us. Thank you very much. All right, going back to the regular agenda process now, we have, I believe we're on the consent calendar. Hold on. So yes, now we have the consent calendar, and I know there's a couple items to pull. One is 13A8. I'd like to pull that one. The second, I think, City Manager, you want to pull 13B1?
E1, yes, Mayor.
Okay, 13A8 and 13B1. Are there any other items that anyone would like to pull?
13B.
Oh, I'm sorry, Councilmember Watanabe?
I'm sorry, Mayor. 13B5, please.
13B5.
Yes.
Okay.
And we'll go for a
Yes.
hat trick with 13B3.
13B3.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, is there a motion to approve the balance of the consent calendar?
So moved.
Motion second. Lights on the motion, and that passes unanimously. So now we have consent items pulled for discussion. Oh, sorry, public presentations, missed that one. Do I have any cards? Any cards? Public presentations? Thank you. Kurt Vartan. Welcome.
Good evening. Thanks for moving public presentation to where it is. So being that this is Affordable Housing Week, I think it's great to that you guys had that as a focus for you. I wanted to just bring your attention and others that if you haven't ever seen a micro unit, what those are and where they might be, I would encourage you to head over to Mountain View this tomorrow or Thursday between 12 and 6. A company called Panoramic Interests has one of their micro units on display. These units are 160 square feet. They're fully furnished, and they're really designed for individual living. It's not really for families or anything like that. And it's on Mercy and Castro Street. So if you want to see it on display, it is at Mercy and Castro Street in downtown Mountain View. From 12 to 6 is when they have their hours, tomorrow
12
and
to
Thursday.
6?
12 to 6.
Okay.
So I would encourage you to see that. The other thing I saw at one of your placemaking events last week, you had the NVIDIA workforce person here. I actually was fortunate enough to be on a tour with him a couple weeks prior to that when Spur did a tour of their campus, their new campus. It's very, very cool. They're very, very socially conscious people, a corporation, and it's clear they love Santa Clara. It's clear that they want to make this their home, and they made it that way. But I was interested to hear what he sees his workforce as looking for: walkable communities, denser environments, things with activities and choices for themselves. And it reminds me of a Don Whedon message, which is seniors also tend to want those same things. They want walkable communities, maybe where you don't have a car, and they have amenities and activities that they can walk to. So I would ask, as you think about in the spirit of affordable housing, how do we create more of that? We do that with density in certain areas, not everywhere, but in specific pockets and specific areas along transit corridors. And oftentimes, they're not going to be single-family homes. And I think very rarely there will be, but there'll be more dense buildings, apartment-style living. I grew up in an apartment. There's nothing wrong with living in apartments. It's not for everybody. But just because it's not for you doesn't mean it's not for others. And to think about that when projects come before you that are more dense, more high, and have living arrangements that may not be comfortable for you or may not even be something that you would choose. It's all about personal choice, and it's all about choices for the residents that are here in various parts of their lives and different times in their lives. And having choices and variety is something that most cities in this area don't have. There aren't a lot of choices other than single-family home living, which is more like, 3 or 4 family home living at this point. So thank you.
Thank you. Any other public presentations? Please come forward.
There is a meeting scheduled tomorrow for those of us that are interested in seeing how the San Tomas, the reason why the San Tomas Aquino Creek Trail can't be opened. That was noticed last week, and we finally have an agenda of that meeting tomorrow. Much to my disappointment, it looks like proper accommodations for that meeting have not been made. I understand that at 4 o'clock, the council is meeting here with police escort to get in the parking lot. So I guess I need to talk to the chief and let him know I'll put my car in the back of that so I can also get in the parking lot, because it's against the law to hold a meeting, a public meeting in some place that we have to pay for admission. So I guess that's how they're going to circumvent that problem. The fact that it's in the parking lot does not make it accessible to everyone who perhaps can't walk that kind of a distance. So you need to be able to provide accommodations for people to get to that location. The fact that that's being held closed session inside the stadium also needs to be corrected, because there's no reason it needs to be held without the public knowing what's going on. It's our stadium, it's our creek trail, and you all work for us. That is not a security issue at all. We are there to look at how it operates and why it's such a problem. So I would look forward tomorrow to be included in that entire information gathering, as we were invited by the chief and as was presented to this council. So I'm hoping that there's a revision going up shortly that corrects all the inadequacies in the agenda that's up there right now. So that the public knows if they want to go, they should come to City Hall tomorrow and be in the parking lot for 4 o'clock to join the caravan of police escort, so we can all go in and participate in the entire session for tomorrow. Because it should not be closed to the public at any moment. You can hold the meeting in the police information area downstairs, or God forbid in our public information room, or whatever the status of that is. So there are other places it can be held so we can all see what's going on at our stadium and impacting our creek trail. So I look forward to hearing how that's being corrected. I'll talk to the chief and let him know if he needs my license plate number or whatever to get in the caravan. And please let other residents know how they get in the caravan tomorrow too, so we're all in on this meeting. Like we've said for 3 years now, we've been trying to get this creek trail open. The fact that our hot dog man doesn't see a lot of people might be because they're discouraged and don't use it because they know they can't. So the numbers don't mean a thing. So it's very important that the public show up tomorrow and participate in this meeting so we can finally get our creek trail open to the public as it should have been 3 years ago. And maybe we can add that to our list of things that for non-performance from our stadium management. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other member of the public?
I think there was another card.
Okay. All right, very good. Welcome.
Hassan Hagag here. One comment and 2 questions. The first comment is that on the Santa Clara City's website, santaclara.gov/visitors/levi-s-stadium/information and then hashtag 552. The comment that I'd like to make is that or maybe it's a question, whether or not we need to update that section of the website, because that section of the website, if you maybe type it into your computer as I was reading out the URL, it states, it's a frequently asked question that says, what is the curfew for events at Levi Stadium? And it explicitly states that Sunday through Thursday, that 10 p.m. would be the curfew. So the question is whether or not we need to update that section of the website or enforce it. The second question that I have is with regards to events at the stadium and security costs, whether or not the stadium authority would be liable for splitting the security costs for any safety and security costs for any events that exceed the legal allotted time for that event. So if any event goes over 10 p.m., whether or not the stadium authority should be sharing in security costs or management company should be paying 100% of it. That's my second question. My third question is maybe to the city attorney or maybe to our city clerk as to if an elected representative or elected representatives repeatedly vote against the interests of the people of Santa Clara, what the process would be for a recall. Because I think we have some examples that we have seen tonight where a very simple motion was made where all we were asking our city attorney to do, or our stadium authority attorney to do, would be to notify management company that they are not to go past 10 p.m., which is the law. And clearly, we had 2 council members who did not vote in favor of that. And so I would like to ask and seek clarification from whether it's our city attorney's office or the city clerk's office as to whether or not that would constitute that and repeated offenses would constitute grounds for a recall, and if so, what the steps would need to be done to be able to begin initiating that. Thank you. And I want to hear an answer tonight on that last question.
Thank you. Any other public present? Oh, Scott Lane, sorry. Card, I'll pretend I got it. Okay.
No worries, Ms. Mayor, City Council, thank you very much. Yes, it's the center of what's possible, it says on our website. We also talk about on our website, which is reimagine and reinvent public spaces in Santa Clara. We, of course, are going through a cleanup campaign. And the health and wellness fair that we have at the senior center on the 20th. What you may not know about, I wish we had on the Santa Clara website, was planbayarea.org. Plan Bay Area is at a hearing tonight in San Jose, that's why I was late. Monday the 22nd, they're having a open house for 2 hours. I believe it's 6:30 to 8:30 at the Marriott Hotel by the Convention Center. Why is this important to us? We're going from 7 to 9 million people between now and 2040. How are we doing this? I will tell you that VTA, and I'm on the Metropolitan Policy Transportation Commission's Policy Advisory Council, so these are my opinions and mine only, but what little hair I have left, I'm pulling out because we're not addressing VMT, we're not addressing heavy rail. We are because, as they've heard me say many times, if you don't put high density where it should go, it goes where it will go, and that should not happen. I also address the fact that we, I think, as local folks, need to repeal the Prop 13 commercial loophole that the first year would generate $9 billion in taxes. It would go down to 8 and then 7, and it would hover between 5 and 7 billion based between here and perpetuity. Think of how much more we can do with that much money. So this is important. Please, anyone that's watching, anyone here, please come and try to find out where we can put high density housing. Please, this is the whole month. They're going to 9 counties. There are 12 different hearings. This is our chance to contact that lead agency with the CEQA. Having said that, I also would like to beseech people and the staff to actually heavily promote the city managers. That is ending May 31st, I believe, for this. I've repeatedly asked for public presentations for this in the community to ask what people want and need, and that has been ignored. I've also would ask that we have much more outreach to bring CEQA expertise in-house. We need to stop these almost $1 million contracts again and again and again. Bring this in-house. We can do this. We can save money. When you have a company for $1 million trying to find soccer parks or to do CEQA, bring that expertise in-house. You could have had a few people for about 10 years with what we paid. And last but not least, we're going to ask for, exemptions are going to be asked for the El Camino specific area plan. We should have had that plan years ago. I really ask you to think twice about having exemptions to that. And I'd like to actually echo what Osama's talked about. Sometimes I wonder, I'll be honest with the city council and some of our senior city staff, who are you working for? When I hear excuses for the 49ers again and again and again, or a large development company that refuses to listen to city council and city senior staff that seems to go rogue, I have to shake my head and go, like, gosh, I keep defending people saying we're not the belle of Northern California, but sometimes I wonder.
Thank you very much. Any other public presentations? City Manager, would you like to answer any of those questions?
Mayor, you want to answer these questions under public presentation?
Well, sometimes we answer these questions sometimes.
Honestly,
Did you not write them down?
I did
Okay.
not write them down, I'm sorry.
All right.
I'll be happy to if you could.
Maybe we can review the tape
Yeah.
and maybe answer them at the next meeting.
Sure, we can do
All
that.
So in the future, we could keep track of what people ask. Some are very simple things. Okay.
My mistake, I just
Yeah.
assumed public
That's
presentation.
okay, that's fine. All right, let's move on then to consent items pulled for discussion. The first item was an item that I pulled, which was 13A8. And I pulled that particular item, which is the adoption of the resolution There's a few resolutions in here. One is city attorney and city manager authority for claims adjustments and other things. The reason I pulled this was the time limits for speakers at the council meetings, and there was just one item that had consent items pulled for 1 minute. I wanted to ask the council if you would consider 2 minutes for that. Other than that, I'm fine with all the rest of the items as presented. Councilmember O'Neill?
Okay, thank you, Madam Mayor. So the reason why we came up with that 1 minute for that, because it was just basically for the person to say, if they can pull it for any reason, and that we thought that the more fully fleshed out conversation would happen when that item actually then came for discussion.
Okay, so maybe I misunderstood. I thought it was to actually discuss
No,
the
it was
item,
just
just to stand up and pull it?
Yeah,
That's it? Okay, maybe we can make that a little more clear in there, that it's just for the item, because then the member of the public can come back.
Right, when they're,
We don't want to preclude them from coming back to talk about the item.
Right.
Right?
yeah, that was just to make
Okay.
it clear that they were just supposed to get up and say something very brief, saying, I want it pulled, and then it would be, when it comes to this part of the agenda, that they would then be.
They would be allowed their full time to, okay. All right. That makes sense. Councilmember Davis and then Mahan.
Okay, there was, I'm glad you pulled that one. So Teresa, when I read this also, and I remember we had the discussion in the meeting, where it says consent calendar items to be pulled for discussion. It should say calendar items pulled, and then a separate line, and then consent items for the discussion. So there should have been like a two, so that the 2 minutes would have been for the completion, for the discussion, but it didn't, I read it the same way when I read this myself. So is that how we formulated this in the meeting?
Can we fix it?
Yeah, can we fix it to approve this so that everybody's really clear on this?
I have a suggestion for wording.
Yes.
Yes,
You might just word it as request to pull from the consent calendar.
right. That's what I'm saying. Maybe it just needs clarity to,
Okay, that's fine, because then you could see anything, the, public presentation for individual agenda item, which is right above it, was 2 minutes.
Okay, so change it to
The
request to pull
request
item.
to pull an item from the consent calendar.
is 1 minute, and then further discussion of that would be 2 minutes. But I believe that most of this is under your discretion, Mayor?
I understand, but I just wanted to, I know it's difficult if you only have a minute to make an argument. It's really hard to get up there, first of all, to talk. Not for some people, but for most people, it's really hard to get up and speak. But if you only have a minute and you need to gather your thoughts, it's just not long enough. But if you're just getting up to pull a consent item, I'm okay with that.
That was.
If we make the change.
Yes,
Okay,
okay.
very good.
Can we note that? Can we note that?
Okay, very good. Councilmember Mahan.
Thank you for that clarification, because I had the same concern. So what you're saying is, you have 1 minute if you're the person that comes in and says, I want to pull item 13B1. That should only take a minute. And then don't we also give the person that pulled the item the first opportunity to speak?
Yes.
Should we have something,
Oh, you mean to?
and then give that
note that?
speaker, that speaker gets what, 2 minutes or 3 minutes?
They get public present, no, yeah, 2 minutes.
So, 2 minutes.
Yeah.
okay. Yeah, so
Do
maybe-
we need to put that in there? Do you think we need to? Because that's our practice.
That was just my question, if it was
Yeah.
a 2 minute or did you treat it as a 3 minute? And then at one time, we had the procedures, especially like on an appellate matter with the 10 minutes and the 5 minutes, we had a chart there that was kind of helpful. And I don't know if the council agrees, to have a chart there for appealed matters and maybe just a chart of these rules so that people know what to expect.
I used to have them in the drawer here. Somebody took
Yeah,
them.
we used to have
but, yeah.
the big chart on the bulletin board there.
Might not be a bad idea. I get confused.
Or put them over by the agendas or something.
Okay. Are there any other comments on any of these from the council? Seeing none, public.
As I have such a problem getting up and speaking. I thought at one point our agreement was everything was going back up to 3 minutes. And I'm really disappointed to see any of this at 2 minutes. In reality, it's the only chance we as the public get to find out what's going on in our city and to have any kind of conversation, ask questions which are usually not answered anyways, but it's our only chance to find out what's going on in our city. And I think the fact that the continuing wanting to limit public input is really insulting to the public. Where do we get our voice in it? Why is it that you're afraid of hearing from us? Because we call you when you vote no on things that we don't think you should be voting no on? Because you don't like what somebody says? I really think that you need to really reconsider that. And especially in the study sessions, there really shouldn't be a time limit. It's the only time we get to study it. So I would hope the council at some point goes back to what they said they were going to do and restore it back up to 3 minutes. Because it is, you are working for the public, and the public is just wanting to have their questions and issues and situations addressed. And 2 minutes is very difficult to address anybody in. Please consider putting them all back up to 3 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you. Please come forward.
Hi, I'd like to thank Councilmember Mann for actually mentioning that. I think that's a wonderful idea, whoever pulls the item for consideration to actually be the first to speak, because usually they have a reason for doing that. If you can at least give them 3 minutes, if you don't give the other people 2 minutes, up to 3, that could be theoretically an option that the first person gets 3. Although I'm not sure if that means, does everyone else have to have 3? I'm not sure. I'd like to politely disagree with my previous speaker, though. I do think actually the current mayor and city council and city manager and city attorney have actually done a wonderful job of outreach and have done, as far as listening and really trying to do things. Hasn't always gone perfectly, hasn't always gone well. Sometimes after we speak, the city council can speak and we can't correct an error that's been done on the dais, and that gets frustrating, but that's part of this discussion. But I would like to hope that, as far as a direction that the city council could be open to reconsidering ideas. Sometimes, it's not, I know it's a challenge. You don't want to revisit an issue again and again, but sometimes we need to revisit these issues that are more sticklers for what has been discussed. And in certain cases, I think what I'd like to do, I know when I presented certain things with the Creek Trail, I wish I had 3 or 5 minutes just set aside to present. So if I'm have an issue for several years, I'm put in the same mix as everybody else. So I think that was kind of what the governance committee talked about, was with when someone comes with a written presentation to have something. But maybe there's an in-between step, which if someone that's leading an activism effort for 6 months or years or something like that might have at the discretion or some sort of policy, either 3 or 5 minutes or something as well to lead it. Because I think the mayor was very nice. I think I asked for 3 and she gave me 4 minutes, thank you, to set up one of the issues a few meetings back. And I think it really helped set the stage for what the background was, because sometimes it's complicated, and even put it in 3 to 5 minutes is challenging, but hopefully I did it in a way that's workable. So I just offer those potential amendments.
Thank you. One of the things we deal with is being able to hear from the public, which we do, we're not afraid of, and we are continually trying to get information for us. But also, if you've all noticed, because we have so much dialogue and so much public presentations, that our meetings we're starting today, for instance, at 4 p.m., and our meetings are going to midnight, 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock in the morning. So there comes a point where we appreciate all of the public input, but we have to still conduct business. So we're trying to find, that balance of including all the public, but also trying to get the business done. So where we still have our right minds and we're still awake, we're trying. So we appreciate that. And in this seat, I always have the discretion to allow the public to speak longer. Anybody that's up here, especially giving information that's really helpful for us. So we're trying to work with the public and include the public everywhere we can, but still knowing that we still have to get the business done. So thank you. Are there any other members of the public before I go to Councilmember O'Neill? Councilmember O'Neill.
Okay, thank you. I just wanted to clarify a little bit about how we came to what we've done, and we have, and a couple of the categories did allow more time. So we have kind of rewritten and formalized the process for presentation of written petition. And that we give 5 minutes, and that had kind of gotten lost in the with everything else we were doing. And so we've already had, in the last couple of months, we've had several people that put in a request to the city clerk's office, and they came, and I think the mayor didn't even necessarily hold them to the 5 minutes, but they came, after they'd submitted their paperwork, and they presented their issue. And so, we haven't been doing that. That hasn't been done for a very long time. So that was 5 minutes. And then we decided that for people who are coming for public presentations, that for items that aren't on the agenda, where there hasn't been already context described, we increased that to 3 minutes. But we did leave the public presentations for items that are on the agenda at 2, thinking that a lot of the context for some of the items has already been set. So, I mean, if the rest of the council wants to change that one, certainly I'll, go along with what people thought. But I kind of looked at this like, okay, we've increased a couple of the time limits, and let's see how it works. And if it still isn't sufficient, we can address it. And as Mayor Gilmore has been very gracious in allowing most people, I think, quite a bit of time to speak.
Okay, any other member of the public? All right. Did you want to? No? Okay. Is there a motion to approve this?
So moved.
With the change? Yes.
Is
We have
that-
a motion with the
calendar.
change.
Mayor,
that-
question, is
that
this
City
for
Clerk
all
has.
5?
It's for everything. It's the entire item.
Okay, so Teresa, you made the motion to approve with the change?
The clarification about the consent calendar item.
Okay,
Correct.
second.
Motion second. Lights on the motion. And that passes unanimously. And thanks to the Governance Committee and the staff for all the hard work putting all this together. It was really a tremendous amount of work. Okay, the next consent item pulled is City Manager 13B1.
Thank you, Mayor. The reason we pulled that item from consent, it's a large contract, and we just wanted to give you a little more detail as to what goes into it, and also for the members of the public. And our Director of IT is here to make a brief presentation just to show you what's included in this. And also, next time we have to do a better job. For example, in the way it was listed, it says approval of a contract for 36 million. I mean, that doesn't tell the whole picture.
That's not a routine item.
Exactly. So it shouldn't, number one, it should not be on consent. I'll own up to that. Secondly, that it's a 4-year contract. I mean, the details are in the report, but the way it was agendized, it didn't do justice to that. So with that, I'll invite our Director of IT. And by the way, some members of the Unisys team are also here in case you want to say hello or they want to say hello.
Welcome.
We walked away with it.
We need to do something about this thing here.
Oh. Get 2 clickers.
To the IT guy.
Yeah, okay. Touche. Just a little background, Madam Mayor, Council, City Manager, thank you for the introduction. This is the agreement for information technology services that we have with the city. And as background, let me just give you a little bit background about this. Battery's dying. There we go. So the city is outsourced for over 3 decades, and we have a current agreement with Unisys Corporation. The current year contracts for $6.6 million, approved by council in 2009. That ends at June 30th this year. And that was a 5-year initial contract with 3 extension years that was now coming to a close. And keeping in mind the need for a transparent and public RFP process, the city council approved a agreement with Avasant, which is a premier outsourcing advisory firm for undertaking a very comprehensive, not only a sourcing process, but as well as strategic look at to whether to outsource, what is the most advantageous way to go about doing this. And as part of that, the initial aspect of it was interviewing about 93 people throughout the city, all of the departments, in order to get an idea about their IT needs, their IT expectations, and with that, looking at various scenarios, whether to insource or to outsource, and doing the projections around it. So this was a year-long journey in getting to this final place where we are, a little over a year, that started with that sourcing strategy and stakeholder engagement that I talked about. And as we went through the RFP process and we down selected and we selected the one contender, we did a very thorough reference checks. We did market pricing and benchmarks. That's what Avasant, the premier outsourcing advisor, they were able to look into the database and see whether we're getting a good deal. They do a lot of these on a regular basis, so they have the reference benchmarks, etc. And we also did a very thorough analysis with Gartner, an independent research firm that gives data on contracts and agreements and all of that. With that, what we ended up with was was the scope of services that'll give you a little idea that there's a lot going into this $36 million deal. I just want to maybe take a second because it's important to understand there's a very comprehensive set of services that goes into it. At the very top are the verticals that we get, the end user services, all of the desktops, all of the systems, all of the servers in the infrastructure area, and all of the applications. The city has 180 applications in the city. So a CAD system would be an application. A library circulation management system would be an application. There's 180 of those. And I've given you the analogy of being like a pet, and you need to constantly take care of them. The care and feeding that goes into some of these applications, we have a third of the systems that are not modern, so we're replacing them and as we go. So there's a lot of that work that goes into hosting these applications, running these applications, upgrading those applications on a daily basis. And on the horizontals are all the cross-functional services. That's the glue that connects them together. That's the best practices, that's the project management, that's the architecture, that's the delivery. That's cybersecurity. I just want to take a very special second to mention something. In this day of cybersecurity and the WannaCry ransomware virus that you've all probably read about in all of the newspapers, we were patched the day after that patch came out as a zero-day virus, so we were not waiting for anything or a week or weekly patch. So when we have the cybersecurity type updates, Unisys is already on the ball. They're looking at global cybersecurity services. They're seeing where some of that damage is happening. They're seeing some of the proactive ways of doing things. And so we don't have to necessarily sweat about all of this stuff. They're proactively recommending and telling us we're going to do this, and they're notifying us, and they're working with our IT team, our end users. I know it's annoying sometimes. We've got to update your patches and reboot your computer, but the city was in very, very good condition over here, and there's not one system that was affected as a result of that. I also want to say that a year and a half ago, we did suffer a ransomware attack, and the choice was to pay up that ransom or to restore from backup, and we do backups very regularly. So we lost a few hours of work, and it was only in one department, but we bounced right back. And so we're taking those preventive measures. Sometimes the user will open an email, and sometimes things do jump out of that email that then hold the system and attack our system. So kudos to them for doing some of those things. But those are the kinds of services that go into the running and the keeping of all of these systems on a daily basis. So the RFP was a very structured approach to bring the best value to the city. And Unisys Corporation was selected based on the best technical response, the value, the alignment to the market prices, and they were the lowest bid in this RFP process. And there were several benefits that came about as part of the RFP and as part of the negotiations. It wasn't just the RFP. We did revised proposals. We sat down with the vendor for several days to beat out this contract, and it was a very, very long, comprehensive process. I think the key takeaways over here is there is not only the keeping the lights on of all of the systems that go on into the city of Santa Clara. There were several strategic key services and initiatives that were also planned for. There's also a capacity of project work. Not all projects are done within this what we're proposing to you. There's a very comprehensive set of CIPs that we work with the city and get prioritized and get funding on a year-by-year basis. But for some of the day-to-day projects and some of the smaller projects, we have a certain set of capacity of hours and cycles and weeks and FTEs. There's about 33 FTEs on site that do a lot of this work. And I do also want to take a second to say, this is outsourcing, not offshoring. That work is not taking jobs from here and moving it to some other remote country. This work is being done here within the city of Santa Clara as well as managed services throughout the US, where we're getting the best economies of scale, we're getting the best skills, we're getting the best competencies that we can source and be competitive in the Bay Area, because it's so hard to recruit talent and to retain talent in the Bay Area. I talked about the governance. I'll talk to you about the governance model here. There's clear accountability. There's checks and balances. When you have such an extensive, comprehensive project and a set of services, there's SLAs associated with it that are incentivizing people to recover and for Unisys to be able to meet those SLAs, even if they breach those SLAs on an occasional basis. I'll just keep running here. There's one more thing to mention, 24/7 monitoring in support of mission critical systems, also a complete revamp of their ServiceNow platform, which is how we manage the services, IT services, and to the end users. And ServiceNow is a Santa Clara company, as you know. And with that, I'll just cut it short and move the recommendation for awarding the IT services contract to Unisys for a 4-year term, as the city manager said, with 4 one-year options at the city's discretion, and it's a performance-based contract, so that would be up to us to renew that contract at that point. The total value across those years is 36.5. There's and the first year is 8.3 million or 8.14 million, which is the first year, the total contract value, which is the current year, which is the next year starting July 1. With that, I do want to thank the Unisys team for being here. Dave Leichner, on the very right, my right, he's the Vice President of all public sector operations within US and Canada. And with him, Bob Van Essen, who's the director who ran point on this contract with us from the start. And then I want a special thanks to Chris Jackson from the city IT department, who ran point and was the project manager through this from start to finish. So a lot of hard work gone into it. A lot of people that are not here today from both Unisys and the IT department. And so thank you for all of the hard work.
Thank you from us too, and we can tell there's a lot of hard work that went into this. Councilmember O'Neill?
Thank you. I just had a couple of quick questions. So we had a comment a few minutes ago from Mr. Lane about all of our outsourced contracts. So it's kind of interesting that, we hire even, outside consultants to help us figure out how to hire another outside consultant. But so from the perspective of that outsourced consultant, was the number of responders that you got to the RFP, was that typical? I know you said that it's difficult to find people or companies, I know there's a lot of IT outsourcing companies, but did they feel that we got a good sample of responders to the RFPs?
We did. I think Avasant started with the coding process of getting these big companies in, or these targeted companies in touch with the city even way before the RFP. With such a big RFP like this, the black box RFP approach really doesn't work. You really have to market why this is a viable opportunity for some of these vendors to come and play. And so we had met with several companies. 4 vendors submitted an intent to bid within the process. We got 2 of those actual RFPs back from Unisys and the company CGI, but those were both very competitive, neck to neck, and it was a very hard, long, drawn out entire RFP process. But some of these vendors like HP, we did meet with them. There were other companies as well. They make their own business decisions whether to apply or not. They'd probably come to a conclusion that their rates would be probably higher than what this would be. A lot of this is very transparent. So they have market-based pricing, they have market-based decisions to make. So with that said, we did get the traction that we wanted.
Okay, great. I had one other question. A term that was there on your sourcing timeline, just out of curiosity, and maybe I missed it when you said what it meant. I had not seen the term reverse due diligence.
Yeah, thank you for asking me. That's quite a interesting term. So when we do reverse, I'm sorry, it didn't go back, so the battery is really dying.
Somebody get a battery for that, please?
Yeah.
An old-fashioned one?
There you go. So in such a large contract, even though you do your best in putting an RFP that is extremely comprehensive, what we did was we invited the vendors back to spend 3 days back in the city to look under every nook and cranny and said, you are going to assume all IT services that are currently being provided by the city. You can't come back to us tomorrow and say, we didn't know it was not in the RFP. You do your reverse due diligence to make sure that you're covering everything that you proposed. And actually, it worked to our advantage. The pricing went down during that process because they had put risk pricing, not knowing what was really in play. But when we gave them a tour, when we showed them up close and personal, Unisys answered all questions. To the other vendor, it was like a little awkward, but the one vendor was interviewing the other vendor and getting information on how we ran the business. So that dropped the price about $1 million in that whole process.
Okay, great, thank you, that was very interesting.
Thank you. City Manager, did you have anything?
No, Mayor, I think
Wanna
we're
add to
very
this?
excited, and Unisys has provided great service to us. We went out with an open mind. In fact, I pushed for the RFP rather than extending their contract. We went through a due diligence process, and they are the best team that rose to the top, so staff recommends approval.
Thank you. All right. I don't see any other council lights. Is there any member of the public want to speak on this issue? Okay, is there a motion from the council?
approve.
You sure the Unisys people don't want to stay here longer? You're welcome to stay the rest of the meeting.
No.
All right, lights on the motion, and that passes unanimously. Thank you very much, and thank you, Chris, as well. Appreciate it. All the hard work.
Rob is happy. Yay.
Happy IT man. Okay.
Very happy IT.
Next, we have one more item that was pulled, two more items. 13B5, Councilmember Watanabe.
3. You had 3 and 5.
I know, I'm
Oh, okay,
going
you
down
were-
the line as
sorry.
they were pulled. Thank you.
Okay.
Councilmember Watanabe.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, this is the Martinson Daycare Center, and I just wanted to just bring it forward. Just happy to see that a resolution has been reached and that the property is going to be transferred to Santa Clara Unified. I know this is a daycare center that's has a lot of history, starting in Alviso and then eventually locating to Hope Street up there on the north side, providing a lot of low-cost daycare to families in the area. I just hope that, I hope that it will stay with Santa Clara for a long time, and I'm just glad to see that a final resolution to that piece of property. So that was all. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Is that a motion to approve?
A motion to approve.
Adoption of the resolution. Motion second. Is there any member of the public wanting to speak on that? All right, lights on the motion, and we're adopting that resolution. And the last item pulled for public consent calendar was B3, and I believe Ms. Brest pulled that one regarding the approval of appropriations for the new Creek Trail Network Expansion Plan, CIP project.
Before I get up and use my time, could someone please expand on what this is, what they plan on doing, and what this plan is? And then I'll use my time to,
Okay,
Yes, thank you.
City Manager, would you like to?
Sure,
Talk
Mayor.
about this?
As the report states, in 2013, we, at the direction of the city council, to look at all feasible possibilities of expanding our Creek Trail network. So, for example, we looked at Calabasas and San Tomas, other opportunities, and Saratoga Creek, even, the Hetchy right away, for example. Sunnyvale already has a trail and a linear park there. So that feasibility study was completed. Now this is the next level of that, which is preparing the master plan. Feasibility is a very preliminary look at it, but now they'll get into the real details of whether the water district would allow a bench in the creek, or do you have to cantilever it, and so on and so forth. So that's what this agreement is in general.
Councilmember O'Neill?
Okay, so my question on this was, in reading through the description of what's going to happen, since most of the people who would be on the creek trails are either pedestrians or bicyclists, I didn't see that there was an active role in that process called out. Maybe I missed it, which is very possible. Sometimes I might read too fast, for the BPAC. So there was like involvement of Parks and Rec and the Parks and Recs Commission, but I did not see that in the scope of work that the consultant was to work with members of the BPAC.
Definitely. That will be staff's responsibility to bring it back to BPAC periodically.
So,
And
right,
also
so-
the other agencies like the VTA, they are, because we have to go after the funding once this master plan is completed. So we'll be engaged with VTAs, the funding committees on the technical side, as well as, their guidance on these kind of things.
So the
Because they have a
intent is-
countywide plan also. So we
right.
have to fit in within that.
Yes, right. So the intent is that the BPAC will be involved in
Yes.
formulating. Thank you.
That's
my-
correct.
was
They're
my
listed
concern.
under the stakeholder coordination. They're way at the bottom, but they're there. So as long as we make sure that they're included in the process,
All
it
right.
says
I
they've
missed
had
that.
one meeting, so.
And
Okay, so that's what it's about.
Thank you very much for this. I think this is quite important, and this leads us into why process is so important. I would request that actually you don't report to BPAC periodically. You have BPAC and other people of the public and the residents and businesses be the tip of the spear with you. Many times staff is going on their own and doing their own things. There are experts in the BPAC. There are unofficial people at the BPAC. It's wonderful. Teresa allows people that are not official members to be there as well. It's a little bit herding cats sometimes, I suppose, but it's really, really important that we do this together, that we really focus once again on the regional trail of significance, which, yes, again, is the Santa Mosaquino Creek Trail. I keep telling people that don't like bicyclists, one more bicycle is one less car in front of you. So the only way that we're going to allow 30% more people in the Bay Area, in Santa Clara, is we have to make really good land use decisions. And that means getting people out of cars onto rail, onto trains, onto buses, you name it, walking. The other thing, it's really, really important. San Jose has learned this lesson the hard way. It doesn't matter how good your bike trail is. It doesn't matter how good your bike path is. What matters is it always gets lost in San Jose at the choke points. It always gets lost at the intersections, and the network is not connected. Individual parts may be wonderful. Calabasas has some wonderful. Santa Clara has some of the best bike lanes in the entire valley, if not the Bay Area. So does San Francisco. But San Francisco understands clearly it's the connection of those networks, and we need to understand that Vision Zero is part of this, which means people make mistakes. So we need to make sure that Vision Zero says if you understand people are going to make mistakes, it makes it more forgiving, and therefore there will hopefully be much fewer major traffic injuries and fatalities. Thank you.
Thank you.
I pulled this item for that exact reason. Instead of having staff going off and coming up with some idea that wasn't put through people who are wanting to use it or needing it or taking direction, it needs to be a partnership with the public and a partnership with BPAC. We have to stop having people go off, get a wild hair somewhere, I refrained, and have these projects be done properly. Instead of having the tail wagging the dog, we got to have the dog wagging the tail. So this has not to be a staff-driven project. It needs to be a public partnership with staff and with BPAC. Somewhere our city, please, Lisa's doing a great job and council's doing a great job getting more public involvement, but it's not done, it's not fixed, it's not healed. This is an example of the problem we have. This should not be driven by staff. What information are they getting it? Where are they getting it from? Are they connecting the right trails? What are the trade-offs? How much money is being spent here versus there? You're asking them to make decisions in a vacuum. And you're asking them to make decisions that the public's going to have a right to and should be coming back and questioning why were these decisions made? And how were they made? So please, do not approve this as written, or just simply modify it, that it needs to be a partnership, not driven by staff. Because too many times we're having staff come up with these harebrained ideas that have never been thought through. And we need to stop making the same mistakes over and over again and expecting a different outcome. That's called insanity. We need to stop insanity in Santa Clara. Thank you.
Thank you. Any member, anyone else from the public? Council, is there a motion? Councilmember O'Neill?
Yes, I'll move approval of the contract with the consultant for the generation of the Creek Trail plan with the note that the consultant will, start the process by coming to the BPAC and meeting with the BPAC, and we can maybe walk through, at that meeting, we can walk through what the process will be and what our points of input for BPAC and other members of the community. And I realize there are other stakeholders that are interested in the Creek Trails as well.
Can you add VTA to that?
And VTA, okay, and I'll include VTA, because, one of our BPAC members is also represents Santa Clara at the VTA BPAC, but I'll include
Okay.
the interaction with VTA, since
feel
they will
better
be
if we add
probably
that.
probable funders of the.
Okay, was Caltrans also involved in that?
There's a whole list of stakeholders, it's massive
Okay.
in here
All right.
that
Just
they're
making
going to reach
sure.
out to.
Just making
Because
sure.
those are the
It's
two,
in the
to me,
report.
that, making sure that our BPAC and we'll find other, we'll come up with a process to make sure other members of the public can comment, and our representative to VTA
Okay.
will be highly engaged. I'll make sure she's very engaged with this.
Okay. I'll
Roads and
second that one.
airports, Caltrans, Water District, the list goes on and on and on.
Yeah, because
So
we have the
they're
issue.
all there.
We have some of the issues,
Yeah.
like with even some of the bridges and things over where the water district comes in, is, well, they own the creeks, and we've got the bridges and the trails, so we have some other issues, as we know, out on near the Intel campus.
Right. Okay, then I'll second your motion.
Okay, a motion second. Any other discussion? Lights on the motion?
With my change.
And that passes unanimously. Thank you. All right, moving on. Unfinished business, do we have any? I don't think so. Reports for action. All right, we have adoption of a resolution adopting an early consideration policy for general plan amendment applications and direction to not apply the policy to the identified pending general plan amendment applications, consistent with the recommendations contained in the agenda report. City Manager?
Thank you, Mayor, members of the council. This is, you've heard of this concept before. This is commonly also called the gatekeeper concept. So that's what we are bringing forward to you based on your prior direction. And Mr. Lee Butler, our city planner, has a brief presentation on this. What we're trying to do is just get your guidance again, or confirmation whether we should, or how we should treat these previously kind of approved project where applications have been approved. Should those have to come back, or should those be considered approved? So,
Thank you, Mayor and
Welcome.
council members. Thank you, Lee Butler, Planning Manager. And it's getting late, so I'll try to be brief here. On March 28th, the council heard a status update on the general plan and the gatekeeper policy, as it was called then. Now, the early consideration policy for general plan amendments was something that the council expressed interest in. And so really, the purpose of that policy is to have early public input and an early consideration by the council as to whether or not a general plan amendment application should move forward in the process early. That feedback will help determine whether or not a significant and substantial investment in both money and time will occur for the developer. So this would happen prior typically to the commencement of significant expenses in CEQA work, so that if a project is something the council is not interested in supporting, they can know that before they invest a substantial amount of time and money. The process would be applicable to all new general plan amendments. It would require that a formal general plan amendment application be submitted, and we do have some pipeline projects that we'll talk about in just a moment. The timing and the process, we would want to get this in front of the council within 90 days of the submittal, hopefully faster. But we would like to go to the Project Clearance Committee so that we can get comments from all the applicable development partners and city departments and divisions, so their feedback can be included. And then we would go out to the community, get that community feedback. The staff would then prepare a report that summarizes that information, as well as the project's consistency on a very broad level with the major strategies of the general plan. So that's what would be presented to you with a outcome of you either saying, yes, let's proceed with this project, and continue through that full review, the full analysis that staff would provide, as well as the commencement and continuance of the California Environmental Quality Act, the CEQA work. And alternatively, the council could decide, no, really, this project is not something that we want to support, and they have the ability to deny it right there. The council could not approve it at that time because the CEQA would not be complete, but a motion to continue the processing of it would also not guarantee an ultimate approval. So we have 4 projects that have pending general plan amendments. All of these were in the process prior to the policy being considered. And so we are recommending that the early consideration policy not apply to these projects. They are in various stages, and I can answer any questions that you have about those. But we've got a map up here showing you where those projects are located. And if you've got any questions for me, I'm happy to answer those.
I have a couple of questions. So this process, this gatekeeper process, would usually take place, you said, prior to any CEQA work being completed. It's sort of in the beginning of the process. And once this gatekeeper process is developed, let's say a development project would come before us, and then the council would decide whether or not we felt it, complied with the general plan and, various questions we may ask. Do we have the ability at that point to turn down the process or turn down the development, or just to tell the developer that if you go forward, you may or may not have a problem with the council? So what is the outcome of the gatekeeper process?
You do have an ability to deny the project right there.
Like outright?
You have that ability.
Okay. So it sounds like the gatekeeper process, I just want to not talk about the 4 yet, but the gatekeeper process is going to take, I think I heard you right, about 90 days to develop, and then we take it for community feedback and other feedback. How long will it take us from, if we said tonight, yes, we want to have that developed, which I believe that, I'm hoping that we do, but how long will it take to actually have the process ready to go from, if we approve it tonight?
Right now, we would have the process ready to go. So it would apply, what we're proposing is that it would apply to any projects coming in. So if someone submitted tomorrow, we would, within 90 days, have the project clearance committee review that project. We would have a community meeting, and we would prepare a report that gets in front of the council within 90 days, and hopefully sooner.
Okay, so it's just, we say, yes, we want the process, and that's it. We have the process. Okay.
That's right.
So now going to some of those 4 projects, some are very, almost fully baked, ready for, one actually came to us for approvals already. So how does that, what does that do to these projects? They bring them forward to us if we said, yes, you have to, all of you have to go through the gatekeeper process, which they're much further than the CEQA work. So I don't understand how this is going to work with these projects.
So we're essentially recommending that these would all be pipeline projects and that the policy would not apply to them. It would apply day forward to anyone who's submitting a general plan amendment tomorrow. So because these guys are already in the process, we would say you are not having this early consideration policy apply to you.
So could any of those developments or developers come to us now and say, I volunteer to be in the gatekeeper process. I don't want to spend any more money until I figure out what the council thinks?
They certainly could, and of course, you can direct tonight, if you wanted to pick and choose, you could very well say, let's consider this one, or let's keep them all in the pipeline projects.
Or could we say also, if they want to volunteer to be in it, that they can?
Absolutely.
Is that an option also?
Yes, it is.
Okay. I'm just trying to understand. I know it's to save time and money for the developer to go through this gatekeeper process, but it's also an early decision also may benefit the community, so there's not a lot of angst on particular projects for the future. So there's benefit to both sides, I can see. Okay.
It can benefit the community and the staff in terms of amount of time saved as well as the developers.
Right. Okay. I get it. Thank you. Councilmember Mahan and then O'Neill.
Actually, I think some of my questions have been answered, but on the 2500 El Camino Real project, that one is also affected by the specific plan policy for the El Camino Real that we just adopted, so that one probably is a moot point because it's going to fall under that constriction at this point. So do we, on these others, what is the general plan amendment that's being sought? Because I understand, like on the Gray Star project, it's actually changing from how to put it? It's changing from commercial to residential, which is a policy that we want to encourage, to get the residential units built in Santa Clara. So do we give any consideration to these 4 projects, what type of general plan amendment they're looking for? I mean, I guess I guess they're so far along in the project, I'm not sure why we would want to subject them to this early consideration. I think it's a great idea going forward, and it would certainly save a lot of developers from going down the wrong path too far and spending a lot of money just to have their project, shot down because it's not going to be compatible with the community. But so what do we do with these, I guess?
Well, the first 2 are in somewhat of a different boat in that council has provided some direction related to those. The first one at the March 28th council discussion on the general plan, there was a discussion about doing a specific plan for that Freedom Circle area. And so staff would be presenting to council likely in June a RFP for their review to prepare a specific plan for that area. The Mariani project, as you referenced, that we've got a specific plan that we are working on the final contract details for right now. And that the council has spoken about and said, we don't want any general plan amendments to proceed until we have the complete visioning process and that initial outreach phase done. For the Prometheus project, so both of those, council has direction. For the other, has provided previous direction. For the other 2, Prometheus, there was a previously prepared EIR that the Irvine company completed for a project that had the same general plan amendment that was proposed, very high density residential. And therefore, it wouldn't necessarily meet the intent of this policy, which is avoiding a substantial amount of upfront costs in the CEQA process. And so that's why we said, let's not apply that. And then with the Hunter Storm project, they have circulated their NOP, their notice of preparation, I should say, and they're preparing their environmental impact report. And so again, their process has moved along enough that we believe that for each of these, we wouldn't apply this early consideration policy.
Thank you.
Councilmember O'Neill?
Okay, thank you. So I just wanted to clarify, so the Mariani project on El Camino, so it's kind of put in the holding area right now because we said no projects, no general plan amendments on El Camino until we get the specific plan, or at least substantially done, so it's already, so that's what I just want to make clear. That decision has not been impacted to put any general plan amendment on El Camino on hold until we have a specific plan that addresses El Camino, correct? That's correct?
That's correct. The direction was at least until the visioning is completed. So the largest chunk of that public outreach, as well as the visioning exercise, is completed, is what the council had discussed.
Okay. So then, once again, to kind of follow on with what Councilmember Mahan said. So the Prometheus project on Benton Street, were they didn't they, because that was a fully approved, entitled project when it was on, or under consideration by the Irvine Company. So they inherited, when they took over that project, they're taking over all the entitlements that were already granted? Is that correct?
They are proposing a new development there with a different number of residential units. The council approved 318 units, and they're proposing, I believe, 355 units. However, the council may recall that the Irvine project was actually scaled back a number of times. And so the environmental review that was completed for the Irvine project actually covered a larger number of units, I believe around 380 units. And so we're confirming that that prior environmental review is sufficient to cover the proposed Prometheus project, but we believe that it will be with some confirmations that we're doing right now. We do believe that that'll cover it. And so they should be able to reuse that.
Okay, and so my last question is about the Gray Star Freedom Circle project. Because I was very, very much in favor of doing, what I call the Great America Corridor, and for our Santa Clara Uptown, doing a specific plan. And I wasn't sure, and I think that this is something we'll have to check with the rest of the council. I wasn't sure whether we were including, we talked about Freedom Circle, but I wasn't sure whether we were including it. And so then my question about, also with Freedom Circle, do we know of, because I've heard varying stories about other when I think of a specific plan, I think of that we've got multiple properties or multiple developers. Do we know if there are other developers in and along Freedom Circle, say Mission College, that part of the north of 101 area that are looking to redevelop? That would be, so that they would be part of a specific plan?
So we have spoken with a number of property owners in the area, and we do believe that there would be some interest in some alternative land uses, particularly residential, and intensification of both residential and commercial uses out there.
Okay, but but I think the Pedro's project is included in this. Gray Star.
Yeah, that's Freedom Circle.
That's correct. It is a part of the Gray Star proposal. The Pedro site is.
So we could potentially, and I don't know, once we'll have to have discussion here. I know Gray Star is fairly far along. Whether if we did a specific plan, if we excluded them or not, that would be a potential, based on whatever the.
That's certainly a potential. I think you'll hear from the Gray Star representatives about that this evening. And what I would say is we could set a separate council agenda item to discuss that. We could also discuss that as part of the RFP we intend to bring back next month for both the Freedom Circle area as well as the Patrick Henry Great America focus area.
Oh.
We'd like to get that in front of council so that you all can weigh in before we embark on that significant planning effort.
Okay, thank you.
All right, Councilmember Kolstad?
Thanks, Mayor. Just to follow up on Councilmember O'Neill's comments, my recollection is that the Great America specific plan was going to deal with Great America developments much further north on Great America Parkway and not down by the 101 freeway. And my sense was that projects like Gray Stars that already came to us, listened to our comments in the study session, took back our comments, and then added them to their project, would be immune or not qualify for this Great America specific project because A, it wasn't in the area, and B, they've been in the pipeline so long, I thought that they would probably be preempted from conforming to that Great America specific plan.
Councilmember Davis?
Lee, my question was, the Patrick Henry, there's a few developers out there that were looking for conversion of some lands. So would they go into, not looking at these guys, but would they go into this gatekeeper process? Because you said that going forward, they would come to us if we wanted to change land use from, light industrial or whatever to density residential, yada, yada, yada.
Right, any general plan amendments would. However, that one I would say is a little bit different in that the council directed us to provide, to prepare a specific plan. And so with that council direction, we would say that council has weighed in on that issue and would like a specific plan to be prepared for that conversion.
Okay, because it just seems to be like there's a little circle there where a few developers are looking to put like urban villages and that type of thing up there. And I guess my next question is, flying home from New York was quite interesting, and I was flying back over this area, and there's not a lot of open space. I mean, it just was no green anywhere. It just was so concentrated that it just kind of like blew my mind a little bit. And we came over the top of Levi Stadium to land at San Jose, and it just seemed that, I don't know, I think the specific plans, we really need to work on a lot of how this is all going to fit together, because just the way the city's divided up, we have serious residential, light industrial, and then we're looking at developing that north side. But I kind of like the idea that you're going to come to us and work this out with how these developers can fit into like this little patchwork quilt of ours that we have out there. So it kind of all works together, because to me, it's the open space. It's these creek trails. It's how people are going to live going in the next century. But I was just wondering, the process would be the application, the public outreach, and then come to council?
That's correct. That would be the initial public outreach. There would certainly be opportunities for additional public comment later, but we would want to get public feedback before bringing that back to
So
council.
everybody buys into this before we have some arguments that we usually have?
Or
The contentious arguments.
provides comments. They may not buy
Okay.
into it, but provides comments.
Okay, thank you.
All right, I have a few cards from the public. Thank you very much, Lee. I have Howard Meyer first, and then Dan Diebel after that, and then Scott Lane. Welcome, Mr. Myers.
Evening. I'd like to talk about momentum. When a developer submits a plan that is clearly doesn't conform to the general plan and then proceeds to spend tons of money, who is responsible for the risk? The developer or the city? Say, for example, a teenager plans a wild party while his parents are out of town. Say also that the parents return early and discover his preparations. Now, are the parents obligated to allow the party to proceed because of the momentum generated from their son spending all his money on the booze and inviting all of his friends? Got a lot of momentum going, so we're obligated to allow it. So the responsible thing obviously would be for the parents to say no. Now, what leads the developers to think that if they spend enough money on a project, that the council will feel sorry for them and approve it regardless of the general plan or damage to the neighborhood? Is it the past history of the council readings? Well, not recently. In fact, not 3 years ago either. On December 9th, 2014, the council rejected a large project proposed by Mariani. The mayor at the time told the Mariani directly, take your project and come back with one that meets the general plan. What did we get instead? We got a project that is larger and denser than the one that was rejected. Should we encourage this level of disrespect? Obviously, his answer is emphatically no. Every meeting regarding this project has been met with hundreds of neighbors fighting to downsize it. This behavior should not be rewarded, especially at the expense of our neighborhoods. Do nothing to encourage this process to proceed. Thank you.
Thank you. Dan, if you'd like to come forward, please.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor Gilmore and City Council members. I'm Dan Dybel with Grace Star. And as part of your consideration tonight, there's really two elements that have kind of come up in the gatekeeper question. We appreciate one of them, that is to pass our project forward without going through the process. The other piece is embedded in there is the potential of this specific plan that I believe needs some further discussion, as has already been discussed somewhat from the dais. I think, as you know, we put forth a project 2 years ago. We were before you in a study session in August of 2015. We received great feedback and direction from you all on kind of what elements were necessary for the project to be something that you could get behind. So since that time, we assembled additional land by adding the Pedro's site. We've gone through extensive design and planning process that's resulted in, we think, a holistic mixed-use development that is connected to the trail and consists of office, residential, commercial retail, and 2.5 acres of publicly accessible open space to kind of knit all that area together. And the project would provide over 100 affordable housing units. Our formal application was filed early this year, and we believe the project hits all of the key priorities around placing housing close to jobs, creating open space, and vibrant connections between the uses in a district that's connected by bicycles and pedestrians connecting to adjacent uses through the Creek Trail and other means. So we request that you provide direction to staff to continue our process towards a general plan amendment for this site and allow for this high-density residential project to move forward. And if you ultimately decide to move forward with a specific plan that would include this general area, that we think that our project would really be kind of a leading example of how mixed-use development could be applied here. So we're prepared to move forward, and we encourage you to allow us to move forward if possible. Thank you.
Thank you. Scott Lane. And no more cards.
Yeah, I'd like to thank Dan for many of his comments and the changes. I think really he hints, I think, at what really should be happening. We shouldn't be thinking general plan amendment. We should be thinking, what is the best way to do something? I really urge you to talk to your peers in Mountain View. They really looked at Google, LinkedIn, and they said, what's the best you can do? Instead, what we have is a patchwork. We have all these plan amendments, and it's not just Santa Clara. It's an epidemic in Fremont that basically forced the mayor out of office, and he shoved a development in before the new city council came in, which forced a lawsuit. Again and again, I keep asking for, where's the nexus study? Why don't we look at what we're being affected by with Cupertino, Santa Clara, San Jose, Sunnyvale? We're all overlapping each other in everything we do. Commute, recreational, parks, everything else. That's really what we need to do. And frankly, we need to even look at the nexus study and say, was the nexus study even done correctly? What is the view for that? I think what often comes down to is people say, well, NIMBYism or whatever else. But sometimes it's because the public isn't invited into the process early enough. So it goes back to process. Now, I put my MTC Policy Advisory Council hat on, and it's frustrating because we entitle, commercial properties, it takes 3 to 5 years to be built when residential could take anywhere from 3 to 8 years. So yes, we're behind at least 300,000 housing units in the Bay Area because of this. But it's also because of our land use planning is so horrible. But if a certain developer can come in and say, here's a much better plan, as opposed to the general plan amendment, I think if we had robust discussions of what the residents and businesses want and need, we might say, no, this is not a GPA. This should be a change of the general plan to make this the way to lead forward. There are other cities that do this. There are other cities that do something better. But I don't want this to be a backdoor to sneak in projects that are almost like ballot language, where it's supposed to be a gatekeeper to help things, but it ends up hurting people. So I'm really confused on the intent of what we want to do, because we refuse to engage the public in these broad discussions that we've been asking for the few years. And the public has been very clear lately. They don't want a lot of these projects, especially Mariana's, because they're not being honest and truthful with the people. And we should have had specific area plans, and we haven't.
Thank you. Anyone else like to speak? Please come forward. Good evening.
Good evening, Council. Going through this process of proposing a new housing and a new full-service hotel, restaurant, and meeting facility in El Camino, I've grown to appreciate what my family has done in this valley. A lot of people don't realize it, but my family were farmers, and my family's still in farming. And
Oh, can you speak into the microphone, please?
Yes, I
Thank you.
will.
Thank you. Okay, could you start again, please? Can you, City Clerk? Thank you.
Okay. Going through this process of proposing a new housing and a new full-service hotel, restaurant, and meeting facility in El Camino Real has made me appreciate what my family has done in this community. My family were farmers,